Great. Okay, welcome everybody to the Town of New Canaan Town Council regular meeting, including a public hearing for Thursday, March 25th, 2021. It is 7:04 and this is a virtual meeting. The meeting ID is 925-167-1532 and the meeting is being simulcast on channel 79 New Canaan TV. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Boy Scout Troop 31. Is Mark Harrison with us?
Yes, it is. I am Charlie Harrison, Mark Harrison's son. I am a patrol leader in Troop 31, and I am accompanied with Sam Robertson, who is our senior patrol leader.
Yep.
Excellent. So whenever you're ready, everyone, please rise. Whenever you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may take seats. And it would be great if the gentleman from Troop 31 could tell us a little bit about the troop and scouting.
All right, so I'll start it off. Hi, my name is Sam, and I'm the senior patrol leader of Troop 31 in New Canaan. Recently, we've been working on some rank advancements for some of our newer scouts, including learning knots and learning some scout knowledge and etiquette, followed usually by a group activity consisting of foursquare, frisbee, or dodgeball. And across the next few months, we're also planning to hold various campouts and community service projects to get some experience outdoors. And now if we would hear from one of the patrol leaders, Charlie.
Yeah, as well as the rank advancement, one of our pretty old scouts recently advanced to Eagle Scout, which is the highest rank you can get in Boy Scouts. And he is, he's gonna be achieving that very soon, which is very exciting. And Sam and I and other kids from our troop also were in a merit badge college, which helps us rank up and so like that. So yeah.
Excellent. All right, thank you, boys. And if there's nothing further, we're going to move on to the public hearing. But first, I guess the roll call is Rich Townsend there. Where's Rich?
I'm here. Thanks, John. Robin Bates Mason.
Here.
Tom Butterworth.
Here.
Liz Donovan. I know you're here, Liz.
She's there.
She's muted.
John Engel.
Here.
Sven England.
Here.
Mark Jimsky.
Here.
Steve Carl.
Here.
Mike Morrow.
Here.
Maria Naughton.
Here.
Christina Ross.
Here.
Rich Townsend. Here. Penny Young.
Here.
Everyone present and accounted for. You have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. The meeting is called to order. Now we'll move into the public hearing portion. Members of the public are welcome to speak to the town council on the proposed fiscal 2021-2022 town budget. Speakers are requested to provide their name and street address, and comments will be limited to 2 minutes because we have a great deal of speakers. With that, I'm going to turn the floor over to our capable Tucker Murphy, and she's going to talk about the rules. Go ahead, Tucker.
Okay, thank you. Some of you attended the Board of Finance meeting last month. We're going to run this the same way, a few guidelines to make sure that it all runs smoothly. The first thing that we're going to ask is that everybody is on mute when you're not speaking, please. And hopefully everybody's familiar with Zoom and we'll be able to get through this. As John said, the Zoom link has been on the town website, but if anybody does wish to join and is listening, it's 925-167-1532. Each speaker will be allotted 2 minutes and their comments must relate to the fiscal year 2022 budget. Speakers will be asked to use the raise hand feature in order to be called upon. The raise hand feature can be found in reactions at the bottom of your screen. Note you need to be in gallery view for this, or when you click participants, the raise hand feature is at the bottom of the list. Anyone joining by phone can press *9, which will indicate that you wish to speak. I will call on people one by one, so please make sure that your proper name is assigned to your square and rename if necessary. And again, speakers are asked to provide their name and address. The chat function has been disabled, so all comments should be made live, or you can submit them via email to tcdistribution@newcanaanct.gov. So I'm just going to start calling people as I see them. And the first one I had on the list was Karen Willett. Karen?
Thanks, Tucker.
You're welcome.
I was just trying to unmute myself here. Okay, so I'm Karen Willett at 60 Springwater Lane. I have a 14-year-old and a 9-year-old. Thanks for your service to the town and for all the time you've spent, especially reading emails these last few weeks. I'm here to ask you to fully fund our education budget. Like last year, I support the plan for healthy start times that is in the budget, and I think it's imperative that we get that done. But I also want to voice my concern about the approach the Board of Finance has taken with regard to special appropriations this year. I don't understand the logic in that decision. The performance of Dr. Lutze and his team have been extraordinary. By keeping schools open when much of the country has been closed, they've demonstrated their extreme commitment to our children. They have certainly gone above and beyond any job description we could have written for them. Having our schools open has added immeasurable value to this town. And I can't imagine there's any parent who would agree with what the Board of Finance has done here. Rather than recognizing them for their stellar results and asking how they can help support them further, they are forcing Dr. Lutze and his team to spend yet more time this year justifying and getting approvals for the money they need to stay excellent in this climate. Requiring special appropriations extends an already lengthy process indefinitely, and their time is not an infinite resource. And I feel strongly that we want them to use their time and talents to continue doing the amazing job educating our children. As for the start time, after being involved in this, as for the school start times issue, after being involved in this for the last 4 years, and as a parent of both elementary and middle school children, I'm frustrated to hear the solution be portrayed as harming one group to help another. I think parents who have kids in only one age group at the moment should maybe think about it like Dr. Lutze and his team think of it. All of the kids are really in one group. Younger children become older children. And there's no question that a child entering kindergarten next year will be better off with this new schedule than with the current schedule. They will go to school earlier when they are younger and it is healthier for them, and later when they are older and can be harmed by an early school start time. Lastly, I think it's also really important to remember that the group that has actually factually been harmed is the group of children who have been in grades 7 through 12 while we have been debating and deferring this solution. So I really ask you to please fund this entire budget, and thank you very much for your time and service to the town.
Thank you, Karen. Next is Scott Rowan.
Hi, yes, my name is Scott Rowan, and I live at 723 Silver Mine Road. And I'm here to support fully funding the Board of Ed budget, including Dr. Lutze's recommendation for a healthier school schedule. This is actually my first public hearing, and I'm specifically here for the topic of the school start times. To be honest, when this first topic came up, I didn't fully understand. I was probably a little ambivalent on the topic. I'm an early riser myself and always thought this was a good thing. But this last year in COVID really made me rethink everything. I was absolutely blown away by how quickly and smartly Dr. Lutze and the Board of Ed reacted to this pandemic, how they handled everything. And I'm sure, like many people, I've got friends in towns and cities across this country that were slow or didn't take the actions necessary and felt the consequences. I feel really lucky to have the leadership that we have. And I realized that I really needed to learn more about healthier school schedules. So that's why I'm here, having studied this and understood this a bit more. I'm a bit embarrassed to say, probably the way I learned the most was watching my two girls. I've got an 11-year-old that, since I no longer had to rush off to the train, was able to get up and work with her in the morning. and she always was able to get up quickly. But my 13-year-old really struggled, as many people probably experience. Getting a teenager out of bed is a challenge, and that wasn't always the case. I can definitely tell you there's a big difference going from an 11 to 13-year-old. And while there's lots of changes, this early morning routine is definitely more challenging for their well-being and their healthy habits. I've seen it firsthand. I know there's a lot of science out there, a lot of education, a lot of CDC recommendation, but as a parent, anyone with a teenage kid would know you really don't need a PhD here to understand that this is really the right thing to do. Last thing I'd say is I know this is difficult. Budget decisions are always difficult. And had I been asked about this a couple of years ago, I probably would have been neutral. But seeing how much great work Dr. Lutzy and the Board of Ed have done, I really feel lucky that we've got their leadership, and I really trust their recommendation here. So I fully support the funding, the full funding of the Board of Education and Dr. Lutzy's recommendation. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate their leadership during COVID. And I really appreciate them looking out for our kids and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. James Bash.
James Bash, 295 Smith Ridge Road. It is disingenuous to cite research for one age group and largely ignore it for another. Currently, the later start time proposal is a really suboptimal solution to a complex problem. It is a bad solution for many kids, and Mike Morrow is right that in essence, it's a backdoor extra tax on many families who need after-school care for their kids. Suboptimal solutions are going to happen sometimes. But what you hope is that in those instances that there is open dialogue between different stakeholders to find an improved solution. Many aren't aware of the proposed plan. Others understandably don't want to speak up. But there are good reasons why the average of other elementary schools in Connecticut is an hour later from the proposed 7:45 elementary school start time. So I hope when town council members offer potential improvements to this issue, as Christina and Sven have done already, that the BOE doesn't just pay lip service to it or act with rigidity and confirmation bias. I hope that in the weeks ahead, we'll start to substantively mitigate the negative impact this proposal will have on the health of many younger students and on the working families we are trying to attract more of. Whether it's this issue or other issues that will become before our town bodies, there should be movement towards a more balanced solution. Finally, I wanted to say that there's something fundamentally wrong when a lot of the nature debate in New Canaan is whether we refurbish our planetarium or when, and there are kids in other cities with much lower per student spending that don't even have Chromebooks to do remote learning. The BOE is asking for an extra 5% this year. We've had a CAGR, an annual growth rate of 4.2% since 2001 in spending. How much is enough? And what actually drives outcomes? When you're in a homogeneous, very wealthy town, you don't have English as a second language, many students, and you have very involved, educated parents. We have so much privilege. How much is enough? And if we're going to think about more equitable solutions, even outside of our silo of New Canaan, does that mean we should do tax increases or cost savings? So for anyone who say, I support this BOE budget, but they're not thinking about the kids in Danbury, how would you solve that problem for those kids in Danbury and get outside of our very short-sighted and insular type of thinking?
Thank you. Jennifer Delipi? I should be able to know that by now. Sorry, say that by now.
Oh, mine. Thank you, Tucker. Okay, Jennifer Delipi, 70 White Oak Shade Lane. Thank you, as always, Town Council, for the opportunity to speak this evening. I have two children in the New Canaan school system, one at South and one entering 7th grade. So I am bringing the perspective of older and younger and realize that both my children will be in high school. It is with great regret, and I am sure no surprise, that I ask you to not approve the full Board of Education budget. They have failed to prove that the proposed plan for school start times meets the CDC guidelines for proper sleep across the overwhelming majority of our students, instead relying on anecdotes and assumptions. The town has shown the willingness to leverage creativity and explore resources that could affect the levers needed to tighten the plan. These should be humbly accepted and mined. This can be done quickly. It is time to put aside all the differences and just focus on the children, to stop the plotting, the attacks, the fear that is continuing to mount. This is not a sign of a unified community, the lovely place we call home. The letters will not stop, the calls, the speeches. I so would love to focus on something else, wouldn't you? And I can fully imagine the videos sent and posted on Facebook and YouTube of elementary students waiting in the dark, in the cold, as cars whiz by. Mine will be in safety vests, waiting for the bus, or the tantrums from overtired children who didn't see their working parents the night before bed, who are simply too young to understand. According to the parent guide, The Whole Brain Child, about nurturing a developing mind, it takes 45 minutes to break through a child's immature mind processes. Who has that time while trying to catch the bus or teach a class? Last year, I quoted Dr. Seuss. Doesn't seem very appropriate this year. Instead, Angela Gorman, we will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens, but one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy, and might we have for all of our student community, not just one portion. Thank you for your time and attention on this matter.
Thank you. Steve Somers?
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate all your time and listening and hearing us out. My name is Steve Summers, 610 Chief Spring Road, New Canaan. Just for clarification, my wife and I have a 7th grader, Lily, and a 9th grader, Jack. And we wanted to take a quick minute or 2 minutes to voice our support for passing the Board of Education budget in full, including funding for Healthy Start Times. I have spoken previously in support of Healthy Start Times, and so grateful to finally see it reaching this stage. Both our children, who, by the way, woke up at 6:10 this morning to get on the bus at 6:45 a.m., will benefit greatly with this progressive move. As has been stated, clearly there's a ton of research that speaks to the change in kids' internal body clocks. But I think it was also stated there's just logic. It may come as a shock that our kids weren't born 13 and 15 years old. That would have been a bit odd. They were 2, they were 5, they were 7. And they went to bed early and they got up early. Last Christmas, I had to actually walk into their rooms and literally say, there's a tree, it's downstairs. There's presents underneath it for you, to get them out of bed. I mean, the change in their body clocks is obvious. They're zombies at 6 a.m. and we're not setting them up for success. So back to the script, we also want to express our sincere appreciation for the Board of Education, school administration. As has been stated, they've handled the changes necessitated by the pandemic unbelievably well. The speed with which our school system pivoted to virtual and then hybrid and back and forth was clearly a monumental feat, and one that provided much needed in-school learning for our students. Through this, they've gotten, as I said, much needed learning. I know I'm running short on time, thought it was 3 minutes, it's 2 minutes. Final thought: we're in a great space to do something really good for a lot of children in New Canaan. Please don't let the pursuit of perfection be the enemy of a really, really good plan. Thank you again for your support, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Dominica Monahan.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dominica Monahan. My address 105 Army Road. So here we are again discussing new start school time initiatives after last year, and it was quietly tucked into the 21-22 budget, even though it was not listed on the Board of Education's district goals and objectives. Thinking back to my college econ classes, I remember having to distinguish between needs and wants. Needs are essential for you to be able to live and work. Wants are what help you live comfortably. Tuesday evening, it was stated that by starting the middle and high schools later, it would be a long day for them and will cut into opportunities like hobbies and sports. This is a want, and it is the very definition of a want prevailing at the sacrifice of a need for elementary age students who need the most amount of sleep. The National Sleep Foundation clearly state a direct flip cannot work unless all start times are reasonable, and they consider a reasonable start time after 8 a.m. You cannot cherry pick which science you want to use. Throughout the process, the Board of Education doesn't cite the sleep experts they have consulted nor the research as it applies to the younger students. There should be absolutely more transparency here. There have been studies completed that suggest early start times negatively impact elementary age students, especially from affluent areas. Furthermore, when the Board of Education is presented with studies and recommendations that clearly show the proposed start times are misaligned with the sleep requirement of our elementary age students, we hear that what we heard on Tuesday, every child is different and there's variability. Yet this language is only applied to the elementary age children. Surely this could be said of all students regardless of age. Tax-funded surveys were completed in 2019 and we learned more than half the respondents rejected this proposal. What is quite interesting about these responses is that 73% of the participants had children in grades 7 to 12, and they still oppose this change. It also begs the question, why was this subset so heavily overrepresented? It is clear that the new start time is not what the majority want. Your constituents have spoken, and the response is no. The BOE plan relies heavily on other organizations having to bail them out by having them coordinate after-school programs that they didn't offer previously. And if they are at capacity or there's not enough programs to go around, we were told Tuesday, we still need to figure it out for after-school options. So they were able to figure out that the elementary age children must go to school at 7:40 a.m. and want to implement it so hastily, but haven't figured out quite yet what to do once they are done for the day. This equates to an additional cost or tax, if you will, for families. Now, some of you may be aware that there's anecdotal research from institutions like Harvard Medical School and sleep.org that are linking the lack of sleep to use of blue light devices like smartphones, tablets, computers, and TVs. What they're finding is that the light, particularly of the blue variety, can keep pineal gland from releasing melatonin, thus warding off sleepiness. In fact, according to findings released at the European Society of Endocrinology annual meeting, teenagers' sleeping problems can be reversed within 1 week of limiting their evening smartphone use. Limiting smartphone use before bed is a strategy that can be immediately implemented and again cost the town exactly $0. Considering that the elementary age students are the largest cohort in New Canaan, their health should be undoubtedly be considered, and it hasn't. Why can't we come up with a solution that positively impacts all students? Because there are options, they just aren't being considered. We are supposed to be providing our youngest learners with a strong education foundation, and this proposed plan does not support this. There are so many unanswered questions that is foolish and short-sighted to make any changes to our school start times. Thank you.
Thank you. I just ask everyone really try to adhere to the 2 minutes if possible. Lisa Steele, did you have your hand up and I just, no?
No, I did.
Okay, you still,
Am I here?
yes,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for all the comments to date. My name is Lisa Steele Stevenson. We live at 56 Kimberly Place. We have 2 children, one at West, one at the children's school, ages 7 and 5. I'm a partner at an executive search firm in New York. And, you know, although that there's been a lot of conversation around other reasons against having our youngest learners start early, I wanted to focus for a moment on the effects of women and mothers who work. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I've done it for many years, and I know that the change in this policy is going to be a highly visible and blatantly regressive policy for our town, because it's really going to cause working mothers to struggle with having to balance the emotional needs of their family with their career objectives. This is not something that women and working women and mothers and families should have to deal with. It's irresponsible. We know that there are reasons that older children need sleep, but making this decision and having the families of elementary school students have to pay this price and make these decisions is not a decision that the town council should be making. And I would really hope that before making decisions, there's more work done on the psychological effects of not having parents with their children for multiple additional hours during the day. And there's also work done on the quality of time spent with these children. The second thing that I wanted to say is I truly believe that the elementary school parents are not aware of what's going on. They're tired, they're overwhelmed, they're overworked. And I really worry that a decision like this is made and there's just a revolt because people haven't been included. And I know that every effort, many efforts have been made to, but it's not been done. And this needed to be better communicated throughout the town, throughout the process. And that's what I have to say, but we do appreciate, we love New Canaan, we love the school district. They've done an incredible job and none of this should detract from any of those important things.
Thank you. Jason Conanderis.
That's well said.
Hi, folks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hang on one sec. I apologize. I'm Jason Conadaris, 90 Beacon Hill. I literally just jumped off my New Canaan YMCA board Zoom meeting in order to speak with you. And I share that detail simply to point out that, like you, I am involved and I care very much about our town across multiple disciplines. I'm here to ask our town council members to please support our school leaders by approving the school budget in full, which includes funding for the Healthy Start Times initiative. I've followed this initiative closely for the past 4 years. I've witnessed Dr. Lutzi's and the BOE's efforts to identify the best path to implement the start time change for our students. And to be frank, at times this process has appeared tedious. And the reason for that is because our school leaders care deeply about all our students and they want to get it right. So finally, after 5 years of researching the complexities of our school community, the BOE has arrived at a plan, and it is a good plan. It's time now, I think, for our town leaders to recognize and support this plan, this what I call a health plan. Make no mistake about it. This is a health initiative. It's an initiative that'll directly benefit 2,000 NCPS students, and it'll align our schools with guidelines issued by the CDC, the AMA, and the American Academy of Pediatrics. These are not made up. These are not talking points. These are facts, and they're facts in scientific publications. Forcing school budget reductions this year doesn't comport. Is our town in poor financial shape? It is not. Do we have poorly run schools? We do not. Are Dr. Lutzi and the BOE grossly mishandling taxpayer money? They're not. But budget cuts do send those messages to them. I can say that I appreciate the merits of scrutinizing our tax spending. I do. I do it too. I do it all the time. But I also understand the importance of supporting the folks who've proven themselves worthy of our trust in this town. So if there were ever a year for town leadership to rally behind school leadership, in their efforts to bring our start times into compliance with medical guidelines, it's this year. We've all spent the last year glued to medical guidelines to ensure our own health. And we should probably double down and ensure our adolescents' health. Last April, when the town council reviewed the school budget, our town was in good financial shape, but some members opined that we needed to cut the school budget in light of an emerging health crisis, COVID-19, and perhaps rightfully so. Today, that crisis is almost behind us. Got my sticker right here, got my vaccination yesterday. It is almost behind us, and we know where we are financially as a town. Here we are 1 year later. Our town continues on good footing. Our general fund's strong. Real estate's booming. And our school system continues to attract new families to New Canaan. So please approve the full budget for the school and trust our school leaders to make sound decisions for our community. That is their job, and they're very good at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Hanich.
Sorry, I was looking for my button. Yeah, so thank you all for your time tonight. Lisa Hannick, I'm at 90 Kimberly Place, and I'm speaking on behalf of my husband and I. He's currently still working. We're asking for the town council to fully fund the Board of Education budget. We understand that the start times is an emotional issue for everyone. I would just say that I think our administrators and professionals have spent years looking at this from every side they could. They've looked at the science, they've heard from all of the parents. It's tough, and it's tough to make everyone happy, but we really trust their professionalism. We think they've shown themselves to be excellent at what they do and trustworthy. I don't think that they would ask for something that they didn't feel was really important. So, I can speak to our personal experience. We have 2 7th graders. This is the first year they've struggled to get out of bed. They've been in the district since kindergarten. I would say to parents of younger children, and I'm sure you don't really care what I have to say, but I would say if your children struggle to get out of bed now, wait until they're older, because it's going to be a lot harder. I don't want to use up a lot of time, and I don't have much more to say than what others have said on this topic. I would just ask for our town council to, like us, trust our Board of Ed and our really, really excellent administrators and fund their budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Adrian Hepler.
Hi, thank you. I live at 68 Rocky Brook Road. I want to echo a lot of people have said on both sides of this argument that I fully support the superintendent, the administration, teachers and staff who have done an amazing job this year. We're so proud to live in this town because of their efforts to keep the schools open and safe. But that said, we're very disappointed in the BOE's proposal to alter the school start times. We support efforts to move back start times for older students. I find it really unfortunate that this argument has pitted kids, parents with older kids against younger kids. That's not what this should be about. It's about finding the money to support a decision that benefits all students, that doesn't, benefit high schoolers to the detriment of younger kids. So for our family, we feel like a plan which causes young children to wait for the bus at 7 a.m. is just extreme when compared to neighboring towns. My kindergartner currently wakes up at 7 a.m. In order to get him on the bus at 7, we'll have to start waking him up at 6. He'll need to go to bed at 7 p.m. to get enough sleep to get up on time. And my husband and I both work. So to echo what Lisa said, my husband will not see his sons for 5 days a week. I get home from the city at 5:30, which means that I'm sacrificing work to get on a 3:05 train to get home for 5:30. And my time with my kids will just be about getting dinner on the table and getting them to bed. I won't have any time to really support them or play with them. It will just be a routine. So for those of you with young kids, you know that the bedtime routine can take up to an hour sometimes. There's a long routine that has to happen before they fall asleep. And so I just want to say, I think it's vital that kids this age have both of their parents available to them as much as possible. They both need and want to be around us, and they don't just roll out of bed in the morning either. There's a whole routine in getting them ready for school in the morning. Whereas for older kids, they can support themselves. So this plan means that the whole family will have to wake up earlier. We'll all be more sleep deprived. As working parents, we work every night when they go to bed, so we don't have the option of going to bed earlier. And sleep deprived parents and sleep deprived kids don't make for a great family situation. I feel like the people on this side of the argument don't feel heard. We're less adept at navigating the town and the school public calendar. I've missed out on some of these meetings because I didn't know about them. And I feel like we're just not being heard in terms of a response that we're asking for in terms of science for supporting young kids' sleep requirements. And I just don't feel like New Canaan should be known as the town that made a decision to benefit one set of students that really affected the lives of families of young children. And I just have to say, if we have an extra $1 million to spend on this change, perhaps there's better ways to spend it. The elementary schools don't have Spanish classes right now because of COVID. They had to send all the elementary school Spanish teachers to the middle school, or maybe give the teachers a raise because they've had a very difficult year, and I'm sure it's really well deserved. I just finally ask that if this does go through, that you consider not enacting it in January. Changing the sleep schedule of a young child over the week between Christmas and New Year's is just not enough time to make that happen. It's very stressful, and that's a bad week to do it. So I would ask that if this does go through, that it happen the following September. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Telesco.
Good evening. My name's Tom Telesco. I live on 113 Southwood Drive with my wife, Jill, and our 2 kids, Michael and Emily. They are currently in 7th grade at Saks, and I want to thank the Board of Education for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here to help to support the Board of Education budget, and I ask that everybody supports that next year, including Dr. Lutzie's recommendation for a healthier school schedule. We really can't thank Dr. Lutzie and the administration enough for providing in-person learning this year and keeping our kids safe in the middle of this pandemic. We should all feel very fortunate that we're living in a town where education is highly valued, and because of the leadership of Dr. Lutzie and the team, our kids were able to continue to learn and thrive while many others were not as fortunate. I think we all believe that the health and the wellness of our students are a top priority. It's very clear as we've talked tonight, and they're worth the cost. The initiatives of changing the school start time provide the same benefit for our students. The proposal meets CDC, AMA, AAP recommendations for middle and high school start times. And we all know that adolescent sleep is a public health issue. As been pointed out earlier, Dr. Lutzy and the board have worked for years on evaluating different scenarios and recommending what the school schedule, what it would, how it worked best. And so there's been a lot of evaluation and time spent on this issue. It's clearly been a long overdue process. The proposal was not approved last year because of COVID, and another year went by, and our teens are continuing to suffer from the current schedule, and we really can't keep waiting. Like a lot of families, we moved to New Canaan for the schools, and we'd like to see that the district continues to support our schools' new programs and initiatives, and that we are a community that's willing to make changes when our superintendent recommends a system that's healthier for our children. Certainly, I think we've learned more than ever in the past year the importance of health and wellness. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Vicki Merwin.
Thank you. Vicki Merwin, 170 Brushy Ridge Road. I'm a mother of 3 children who are 7, 5, and 1. I support an effort for healthy start times for students, but strongly oppose the schedule in this budget for what it does to our youngest students and their families. It's extremely disheartening that for over a year, my concerns and those of many parents of young children have not been answered, if even acknowledged by the Board of Ed. The application of science has been selective. There are studies that show early start times for young children are harmful. They haven't been mentioned, let alone put on the district's website. The studies that are on the website make it clear young children need more sleep than older children. I find solutions of putting my kids to bed between 6 and 7, as dismissive as they are, unrealistic. This also means many kids like mine won't get to see their commuting parent during the work week. This is particularly cruel, and it's not theoretical. It's an immediate and very real effect that many families in New Canaan will suffer through. Childcare is another issue, and one that will hit those in our town with the fewest resources the hardest. On Tuesday, I watched members of the town council pose some of these questions to Dr. Lutzy, and it was distressing to once again hear no substantive answers. Hoping to move elementary times from 7:45 to 7:50 isn't meaningful. After-school programs at the Nature Center or the Y can only handle so many kids, and they're typically expensive. I would also hesitate to use Cider Mill School as a model of success. I've heard very negative feedback from people with experience there. Finally, the outreach to stakeholders has been biased. The surveys were heavily skewed towards families with older children, and still the majority opposed this change. There have been no engagement with the preschools in town, even though those families stand to lose the most in all of this. There hasn't been a single email this year about the proposed mid-year implementation, and therefore many are still in the dark. I want to end by pointing out that Dr. Lutzy didn't even have changing school start times in his original district goals and objectives for next year. I watched members of the BOE at the July 2020 meeting ask him to add it, and here we are. That spoke volumes to me about whether this change for next year is absolutely imperative if he didn't even prioritize it at the time. I'm worried, and I'm tired of being ignored and watching other young parents be dismissed. At this point, I have no other option but to appeal to the town council tonight. Maybe you feel like you shouldn't interfere with school business, but this issue affects much more than what happens within our school walls. We have to do better for all our children. Thanks.
Thank you. Jody, as a party.
Hi, thank you. Jody as a party, 28 Faraday Drive. My children are a 15-year-old high school freshman, an 11-year-old in 5th grade at Saks, a 5-year-old in kindergarten at South, and a 3-year-old at home. I'm speaking today in full support of the Board of Education budget as presented, including the change for healthy school start times for all of our students. I have a foot in every camp here, and I will be in the New Canaan public school system for the next 14 years. I'm so thrilled to be part of this school district. Dr. Lutzy has shown incredible decision-making, especially over the last 12 months, and he has proven his commitment to all of our children. He prioritized in-person learning for our youngest students at the start of this school year and he asked the older students to be patient with a longer period of remote and hybrid learning. He continued to make changes to the schedules when necessary to balance the desire for all children to be in person with the reality of the public health metrics and his overall responsibility to keep our schools safe for students and staff. We are blessed to have him as our leader. My children are all thriving at school this year, despite each of them being in a brand new school for the first time and having to deal with all that this year has brought. Next year, I will still have children at the high school, at Saks, and at South, and my youngest will start preschool. I will have 4 different school start times for several years. We will need to make adjustments to our family schedule, but it isn't up to the school district to cater to my family's individual schedule needs. They set appropriate school hours and my family will adjust as necessary. This year has taught me how resilient kids can be and that we shouldn't be afraid to make changes. Changing school start times, as Dr. Lutzi proposes, is necessary to ensure all of our students are able to learn when it's most effective for them. Our teens, whose sleep cycles trend later, need to start school later, and our younger children learn more effectively earlier in the day and need time for fresh air and exercise after school. As a mother, I would never choose a favorite child, and Dr. Lutzi is certainly not playing favorites with his proposed change to school start times either. He has based his decisions on research and science. I have followed this issue for a long time and educated myself on the research, as well as living with it firsthand within my family. I spoke during the process last year, and if anything, this year has just shown how important the issue is for the health of all of our students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jess Hutter?
Good evening. My name is Jessica Hutter. I live at 30 Twin Pond Lane, and I have a daughter in 5th grade at Saks and a son in 2nd grade at East. I would like to start by saying how much I appreciate all of the time and effort each of you puts into this process, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight. I have spoken both here and to the Board of Finance over the last 3 years to voice my support for Dr. Lutzi, the Board of Education, and the work that they do. My view this year has not changed. I am asking you to approve the Board of Ed budget as presented to you with no reductions. This year has been hard on everyone. There has been one ray of light that shone through, and that is our schools. The fact that some students in other communities haven't seen the inside of a classroom in over a year, while our schools have been open every day and our children have had the ability to be in an in-person classroom environment for the entire school year, speaks volumes to the care Dr. Lutzi and his entire staff have for our children. As you've heard, people here tonight are asking you to not approve the budget because of the proposed change to start times. First, I think we all agree that it is not the town council's role to dictate Board of Ed and/or school policy. Those decisions should be left to the experts in charge of running our schools, the people who have made it their purpose in life to see our children succeed. Second, some of the arguments being made imply that Dr. Lutzi, his staff, and the Board of Ed do not have the best interests of our children in mind, or rather, they only have the best interests in mind for a subset of our children. I vehemently oppose this implication, and every move they have made this year and in the past has proven that this is not remotely true. Every step they have taken this year has been for the health and safety of our children, beginning with focusing on keeping our youngest learners in the classroom the longest over this very stressful time. What Dr. Lutzi, his administration, and the Board of Ed have done this year has been nothing short of amazing. I think it's time that we, as a town, let them know that we support them, their decision-making, and their ability to run our schools. Please approve the budget as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Kirsten, LTC Connecticut, if you could give me your last name, please.
Hi, sorry, that's my work. That's my work Zoom name. It's Kirsten Bossin, Bossin. I'm at 30 Sunrise Avenue. I've lived here for almost 13 years. My husband grew up in New Canaan and we moved back because of the school systems, because of our community here. And we have a son in 5th grade at Saks and a son in 7th grade at Saks. Both graduated from West School. Sadly, the 5th grader graduated during COVID, so I haven't been able to give everyone hugs goodbye yet, which is to our detriment for sure. I just want to say, first off, thank you all to the town council. I know that you guys are all volunteering and that this is a lot of effort and you've put a lot of thought and time into it. And we are all grateful for your volunteerism. I also want to just to let everyone know how grateful I am to Dr. Lutzy and his team. My sister is a teacher in the Hartford school system, and to look at 2 different school systems within the same state is pretty remarkable in terms of the discrepancies between them. And Dr. Lutzy has done a fantastic job really caring for not only the teachers, but for our students, as well as I feel like the parents. And in fact, I was on a 504 call with my son, and I was telling the teachers how I'd love to make a I love Dr. Lutzy t-shirts, and they were both like, oh, we want those. We would totally buy them. We could do it to support the school system. So everyone has a huge heart for Dr. Lutzy, in my opinion. I have my master's in public health. I work full-time, and I studied health behavior and education. And me personally, I do like to follow the science. And I truly believe that the Healthy Start Times for New Canaan is just that, following the science. I've seen my 5th grader who bounds out of bed at about 6:15 ready to go versus my 7th grader who I literally have to pull out of bed every morning. We've taken every, precaution possible to try to make sure he's fed and knows where his shoes are, packs his bag, and does everything, the night before to get him on to what used to be onto the bus. Now we drive him. We've gotten him protein shakes to make sure he has adequate food, because he's literally going to school asleep, and he's having trouble staying awake during the school times. And this is a really vital time. If you think about kids who are in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, middle school is hard. They're going through developmental processes. Then they're on to high school, where the pressures to get into a good college, to be active athletes, is really tremendous. And then we're asking them to do all of that in a sleep deprivation state. And I personally disagree with not pushing the Healthy Start Times forward. So I'm asking you, regardless of, where you are in the school system, think to the future of your kids, and that this is the most viable option that our Board of Education has put forward. I understand having to get childcare. I understand coming from a working parent's perspective. I've gone through all of that juggle between not feeling like you're doing an adequate job working, not feeling like you're doing an adequate job of taking care of your kids. Particularly during COVID, I face it every day, so I get it. But believe when I tell you that when they get to that older age, it's significant. They're not only going to be learning at an elementary school level, it's really difficult to be a middle schooler, to be a high schooler. And this is our opportunity to take care of those kids so that they're not depressed, so that they feel like they can socially be viable, and that they feel like they can be athletic if they need to be, and that they can really excel. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. There's still many of you who want to speak. So again, if you could please try to minimize your comments or keep them to 2 minutes. Janie Conadaris.
Oh, Tucker, I'm so sorry, because I was told 3 minutes. So I'm going to go.
I know. Some people asked.
I know we did. And so I really am going to do my best here. Good evening, everyone. I'm Janie Conadaris, 90 Beacon Hill Lane. I support our Board of Ed budget, and I'm asking our town leaders to prioritize and fund Dr. Lutzy's Healthy Start Time initiative. The fact is, the current New Canaan public school bell schedule directly conflicts with medical guidance. All major medical organizations have sounded the alarm, saying that for adolescents, school should not start before 8:30 a.m. This science is based on multiple peer-reviewed studies and is well established. New Canaan isn't even close to complying with those guidelines. Our school leaders know this and have spent 5 years studying the necessity of making this change and the best way to implement it. They have listened to all the stakeholders. They have sought out efficiencies by working within the constraints of our existing 3-tier bus system. And they understand that no viable 2-tier system exists. The reasons for this go far beyond the cost of $3 million a year. A 2-tier system would also add 29 buses to our fleet and result in elementary starting at 9:30 and students being dropped off after dark. That is not viable. The current proposal has no child being picked up or dropped off in the dark. I feel like that's really important because there's so much misinformation being circulated right now about the current proposal. Our school leadership has done an extraordinary amount of work, and they've done this work because it is their job. It's their job to run our schools, and they do it well. Opponents would have you believe that Dr. Lutzy's proposal is harmful to our elementary students. Perhaps this assertion is based on personal bias against the new schedule, or perhaps it comes from elsewhere, but it certainly does not come from well-established, peer-reviewed scientific studies performed by medical doctors. In fact, it is completely counterintuitive to the circadian rhythms of younger children. Younger children learn best in the morning and tire out by the afternoon. Dr. Lutzy has not forgotten anyone, and certainly not our youngest. That's part of the reason why this process has taken so long. He has left no stone unturned, and he's not finished. He plans on tweaking elementary schedules to move them closer to an 8 a.m. start. So let's support him as he does this. We cannot derail this health initiative over whether our elementary start time will be 7:50 or 8 a.m. Finding the best plan doesn't mean finding a plan that makes everyone happy. There will always be people who disagree with scheduling changes. Remember the change to full-day kindergarten? But the truth is, many surrounding elementary schools have start times similar to those proposed by Dr. Lutzy. In addition, a mid-year implementation will allow elementary families over 10 months to prepare for this change, as well as allow our childcare programs, our community ecosystem, time to evolve to meet the needs of the families. So I beg, entrust our school leaders, cast your vote in support of Dr. Lutzy and the years of work that he has done to implement this change. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Maglicano.
Hi there, Maria Maglicano. I live at 117 Elm Place. Thank you for taking the time to hear our comments tonight. I have 4 kids, ages 6, 9, 11, and 15, and I'm a pediatric nurse. I'm here tonight to ask you to fully fund the BOE budget for next year. Over this past year, Dr. Lutzy and the administration have demonstrated excellence. Our district shined nationally. We were so fortunate to have our schools open safely when so many others were closed. We can credit this to our administration's leadership and creativity and the investment our town made in the operating funds. I think it's important to note that the BOE needs the funds now in order to plan for next school year, so making them get more approvals for funding at a later date could jeopardize other programs such as healthier start times. Town Council made the tough decision last year of cutting the BOE budget, which cut the Healthier Start Times program. I would hate to see this happen again. We've learned now more than ever that health and wellness is of the utmost importance. I have a high school student at St. Luke's who benefits greatly from the 9 a.m. start time. Another huge benefit to our kids will be aligning the start times of all elementary kids. I'm a South parent and my kids get to school between 7:55 to 8 a.m. every morning. Bus routes, what I've been told is that bus routes will not begin before 7:20 with the proposed plan. I realize that this is a big change for East and West school parents, but I can tell you that as a South school parent, getting my kids up early has not been a problem. Our town finances are strong. Trust our school leaders. Please fully fund the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. James Yeo.
Oh, hi there. Can you hear me or?
Yes.
Alrighty. Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. You probably all know me by now. This past year, I've been asked many times, why are you so passionate about start times? Why are you fighting so hard? Now, many have focused on forcing elementary school children to wake up in the dark every morning, only to be rushed out. However, prior to COVID, I, like hundreds and hundreds of other moms and dads, made the daily trek into the city. If I was lucky, I made the 5:25 train home and hoped to catch the tail end of dinner, followed by baths and a bedtime story. Now, I know raising children can be a blur, but for me, that's the best part of my day. I'm sure many of you recall how priceless those dinner and bedtimes were as well. But this start time proposal literally steals that from my family. It robs hundreds and hundreds of young children of that all-important time with their parents. It reduces countless parents to weekend moms and dads. To meet the CDC requirements that many have quoted, nearly 1,000 children will need to be in bed by 6 or 6:30 to make their buses the next morning, likely never seeing one of their parents all week. Honestly, I can't think of something much crueler to do to a 5-year-old child than to rip a parent from their daily lives. How can this be the healthy alternative? How can this be anything less than devastating for working moms and dads? What young family would ever move to our town and subject themselves to this? Yet knowing what this plan will do, the Board of Education still refuses to honestly consider any other alternative. How has Greenwich, Westport, and Norwalk managed to do this with more miles of road and more students? If neighboring towns can make a change without harming their youngest and for less expense, why can't we? If this plan goes through, hundreds of parents will return from work every night to quiet homes that were once filled with laughs and giggles. Those priceless memories of bedtime stories and goodnight hugs that some of you and your children may share will be taken from us. Now, I'm sure proponents of this plan will claim, oh, this is dramatic or it's exaggerated. But if they simply do the math, they know that this is exactly what will happen to many. Or simply go to the New Canaan train station any weekday evening this winter and see the endless stream of parents who will no longer have a reason to rush home. I will unfortunately be one of them. And that is why I'm so passionate about finding a better solution. Because I'm fighting to see my children, I'm fighting to be in their lives. Thank you.
James, what is your street address, please?
Sorry, 135 Braeburn Drive.
Thank you. Vanessa Lowry?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. Vanessa Lowry, 64 Arrowhead Trail. First, thank you to Dr. Lutzy and the town for your very important work this past year to keep elementary school students in school. I'm the mother of a West School student. Having spoken to friends with children in middle and high schools, I understand the desire to move start times later at those schools. In a few years, I too will be a middle school parent. But in changing school start times, we need to consider the best interests of all students. The proposed three-tier solution negatively affects elementary school students and families. For elementary school students, such a shift will mean earlier bedtimes and less time to spend with parents finishing or returning home from work. I'm sure for many young families like mine, this is an important part of their day as a family. My children get to play with their dad and we have time to read together instead of rushing to get our children to bed by 7 p.m. This is such an important time for our children and our family. New Canaan is a family town and we should not take this away from families. This shift will also be challenging for young families who are juggling elementary and preschool schedules. The preschool start times in New Canaan are currently synced with elementary school start times. On any given morning, you can see a parade of cars navigating the preschool and elementary school drop-offs. While it may cause some traffic congestion, it's an important convenience for young families managing the everyday juggle. With the proposed change, young families would have to load their kids in the car for an elementary school drop-off first, and then reload the younger children for a preschool drop-off, which in many cases would be more than an hour after the 7:45 elementary drop-off. For those students taking the bus, especially students who have longer rides, it would mean getting on the bus before sunrise in winter months. These children will not only be getting on the bus in the dark, but in colder months, New Canaan will be exposing its youngest bus riders to road hazards. Lastly, as the board's own investigation has shown, there's a dearth of research that supports earlier start times for elementary school students. I know the board is eager to move forward with this change. However, I don't believe the current proposal is in the best interest of elementary school students and it ignores the concerns of young families. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Pryor?
Okay, hi everyone. Yes, my name is Laura Pryor and I'm at 138 Lone Tree Farm Road. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak tonight. I want to lend my support to funding the proposed Board of Ed budget this year, especially the change to school start times. As a parent of 3 children, a 9th grader, a 7th grader, and a 3rd grader, I have the perspective of having kids at each school. And I certainly do not want to pit them against each other. I want the best for every one of my kids. But every school morning, it strikes me, and the medical studies support this, that my children are going to school out of order. My youngest is up and board for hours before the others, awaiting his 9:05 start, while my 9th and 7th graders are groggy and very tough to rouse. It's been especially heartbreaking watching my 7th grade daughter, just as I did with my older son, try to adjust to the shock of the earlier start time this year. And it's just as her biological clock has made it so difficult for her to fall asleep at night, try as she may. I truly dread seeing my little one go through this when he gets older and his own rhythms start to change. Towns all across the country have already made start time changes. So for New Canaan to yet again miss this opportunity to make this adjustment would leave us behind again on the most up-to-date approach to education. If we've learned anything this very difficult year, it's that we can make big changes when it's urgent. I truly believe that healthy start times is absolutely that. I really appreciate all of your attention to this matter and for all that you do for this town, always and especially in these challenging times. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bar Rucci.
Hi, I'm Barbara Rucci. I live at 697 Valley Road. I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight. I've been here before. I think you know that I support the BOE budget and healthier start times. I wanted to speak to the board members and some parents who keep bringing up the magical two-tier option in the hopes that it will make everyone happy. But a two-tier solution would not make everyone happy. If we aligned grades 7 through 12 with medical guidelines and started at 8:30, then K through 6 would not start until 9:30. Most young kids are up early, and our elementary teachers have said that they learn best in the morning. With the two-tier option, you would be keeping them in school until 4 p.m., which is a really long day. And some kids wouldn't get home until close to 5 p.m. off the bus, in the dark during the winter months. Many families would strongly oppose having such a long day for their young children. There's also the problem of bus drivers. With a two-tier option, you would have twice as many buses for the elementary route than you would for the 7th through 12th route. So it would be really hard, if not impossible, to find bus drivers to drive just one route. Not to mention that the two-tier option is 3 times more expensive. This time, throwing money at something isn't actually going to fix it and make everyone happy. Change is hard, no doubt. But what you need to understand is that this solution is the best for a child moving through the entire system. They go to school early when they are little and wake up early, and they can sleep later in the morning when their biology changes in adolescence. If you have a child who needs 12 hours of sleep now when they are young, they're going to be the child who is suffering the most with 6 or 7 hours of sleep in high school. This solution that Dr. Letzi and the BOE have spent 4 years researching is sleep equity for all, even though it won't make everyone happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Shimmick. You're good.
Good evening. I'm Ann Shimmick, and we live at 47 Douglas Road. Thank you all so much for your service to our town and volunteering your time for our community. We have 2 children in elementary school. Our oldest is at 6. I'm here tonight to ask you to fully fund the BOE budget for next year, including Dr. Letzi's recommendation for healthy school start times. My children go to South School, which starts at 8:15, and they get home at 2:45. Dr. Letzi has stated that he will be working to move the proposed elementary start time as close to 8 as possible. While aligning elementary schools means greater shifts to the routines of East and West parents, Dr. Letzi's proposal is only 20 to 30 minutes earlier than the family schedules already in place for South students. We already know it can work in New Canaan. I've been surprised to hear concerns from parents stating that they will need to put their children to bed at 6 p.m. That would equate to South parents needing to put their children to bed by 6:30 p.m. today. I can assure you that after 8 years as a parent at South School, most children do not need to go to bed at 6:30. When all 3 of my children were at South, we were a dual income family. I commuted to the city while my husband traveled out of state. I fully appreciate the difficulties in finding childcare to cover the gaps between school schedules and a workday. We needed childcare in the mornings and afternoons, and it would have been much easier for us if school started earlier. The early bird programs at East and West begin at 7:45 a.m. and are very well attended. Dr. Letzi's proposal will benefit many working parents in this town. Catching an 8 a.m. train to the city now becomes possible. As part of the trend for districts to follow the science, Westport changed school start times last year. There were petitions to town officials and emotional public hearings. Parents expressed many of the same concerns on the impact of families that our BOE has heard for the past several years. But the difference is that in Westport, they were actually moving their elementary schools 30 minutes later in the day. We know that change in a community is hard. We moved to New Canaan the year before full-day kindergarten started, and families were very upset over possible harm to their young children and lost time with parents. However, Dr. Letzi and our entire administrative team has done an exceptional job in steering our community through difficult times. He has followed science and he has kept my children safe and healthy all year. We have learned this year more than ever that he does what is right for our children. He is a true leader who has to make difficult decisions when an option that works for everyone simply does not exist. But that does not mean that he has not listened to everyone. Our administrators have met this year with creativity, competence, and excellent stewardship of funds. Please fully fund the BOE budget for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Oliver.
Hi, Kristen Oliver at 713 Silver Mine Road. I am a mother of 3 and a pediatrician and a member of the American Academy of Pediatrics. As a member of the AAP and a pediatrician, I fully support earlier start times for adolescents. However, I would point out that there's nothing within the American Academy of Pediatrics policy that suggests that earlier start times for adolescents should result in later start times for adolescents should result in earlier start times for younger children. Children ages 6 to 12, based on AAP recommendations, should get 9 to 12 hours of sleep every 24 hours. I'm also very grateful to everything that Dr. Lutzi and the rest of the schools have done to keep our children healthy and in school this year. But I do urge you all to consider a plan that is healthy start times for all children and a more balanced solution that doesn't require the younger students to have to start earlier, and the incredible impact that everyone has spoken already of that will have on full-time working mothers. Thank you.
Thank you. JK Pacios, if you could give me your full name, please.
Hi, Julie Pacios, and I'm at 79 Frogtown.
Thank you.
So first, I'd like to express deep gratitude to Dr. Letzi, the administration, and the staff for their remarkable leadership over this past year. And our family requests that you fully fund the entire school budget, including the School Start Times Initiative. And I've seen my 3 children who are in 9th, 7th, and 5th begin their struggles with the earlier start times as their bodies started to change around the 5th grade, despite keeping early bedtimes. So on that note, my daughter Kara would actually like to speak.
Hi, I'm a 7th grade student at Saks, and I do fully support the budget. I am the first stop in the morning. That would cause me to wake up around like 5:50. This is too early. However, I do sleep until 6:30, and my mom has to drive me onto a later bus stop around like 7. Even with that bit of extra sleep, I'm still tired throughout the day. And sometimes it's hard to focus at school because I'm just so tired. I've even seen kids in my class fall asleep during class. Students need a later start time to keep them energized throughout the school day. Speaking for most students, throughout the week we have sports, clubs, and other after-school activities. And so with that, we're having to wake up so early. We don't have enough fuel to power us through those activities. Every hour of sleep is appreciated, so if students could wake up later, kids would be more focused, refreshed, and more involved in school. And this is why I support the funding for students at Saks to have a later start time.
Thank you very much. Abigail Dixon.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to Town Council for allowing us the opportunity to speak. My name is Abby Dixon, and we are at 75 Parade Hill Road. And I ask that the council not pass the earlier start time as proposed. I am speaking as both a concerned parent to future elementary schoolers and as a mental health professional. It's clear that the research has not been done as to the effects of an earlier start time on younger children by decision makers in this meeting. As a mother and a mental health professional specializing in women's and maternal mental health, I'm gravely concerned for the health and well-being of elementary age children and their families. Let me start by introducing the well-regarded, sorry, my dog is being crazy, well-regarded, replicated, and empirically validated theory of attachment first posited by Dr. John Bowlby in 1988. A quick Google will explain the deeper elements of this theory and its subsequent empirical validation, as well as its extremely broad use today. One major part of the theory of attachment is called maternal deprivation. In Bowlby's words, the infant and young child should experience a warm, intimate, and continuous relationship with its mother or permanent substitute, in which both find satisfaction and enjoyment, and that not doing so may have significant consequences and irreversible mental health consequences. With this new start time, What this new start time will do is deprive young children of time with their parents, who Mr. Yao, I think, mentioned that earlier, who commute. This move will deprive children of connection with their parents. It is also undeniable that the lack of connection with parents will harm the emotional well-being of the children. Beyond the emotional health aspects of this start time, you will inevitably force working mothers to choose between the emotional health of their children and their careers, ability to contribute financially to the family, and to therefore live in New Canaan. Would you want to choose between a job you love and or need, or the well-being of your child? This start time is not only emotionally harmful to children, but is also somewhat misogynistic and could lead to trauma and separation anxiety for children and parents alike. By passing this start time, you are telling working mothers that neither their careers, which pay taxes to our lovely town, nor their relationship with their children matters. That is what this start time tells us. Despite the benefits for high schoolers, I do not abide by the idea that the benefit of one group should cause harm to the other. This system is not healthier for all children. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. Monica Capella.
I'm shaking.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Hi, I'm Monica Capella Chimera. I live at 194 Lost District Drive. I am here to once again give my full support for the Board of Education budget as proposed. I think that in the time of COVID, I am so proud of the work that the NCPS and Dr. Lutzy and the BOE have done on behalf of our children. I don't have much to say other than I have 4 kids. One is at the high school. I have one at Saks, and I have 2 at the elementary level. And my youngest is only 5. He's in K. So, you know, these changes, which are hard, they're going to affect us for years to come. And yet I still am throwing my support behind this plan. You know, I'm here to say to you elementary parents, you know, who don't have older kids yet, you will be where we are in a few years. You will be here for sure. I mean, it's unavoidable and it happens very quickly. The circadian rhythm just sort of sneaks up and it takes over. My high school student, you know, it's not for irresponsible behavior. I have Circle on all the phones. Phone goes into the charger at 9:30 and bedtime is firm at 10:30 unless we have an overabundance of homework, which does sometimes happen. He's not in a lot of crazy sports. We're doing everything right here. And I have to slip him a melatonin every single night in order for him to fall asleep. And he still wakes up and he's tired. Same thing goes for my middle schooler. She gets a melatonin every night too. It's really hard to hear some parents portray this as a decision where we're sacrificing one age group over another. I love all of my children with every fiber of my being. And as a mother, I could tell you, I would never sacrifice my youngest and most vulnerable for the benefit of my older kids. I just wouldn't do it. The teachers also agree, the elementary kids, the elementary teachers agree that the little ones learn best in the morning. I just, you know, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to hear some of these accusations that are not accusations. I'm sorry, that's a bad word, but some of these theories that are being posited. You know, I'm a latchkey Generation X kid. My dad was in the military and my mom had 2 jobs. I went to school in an underserved community. I did not see my parents very much. And it wasn't because they didn't want to be there. It was because financially they just couldn't. So I'm here and I'm fine and I'm okay. And I want to spend as much time as I can with my kids, but I also recognize that at the end of the day, my want, which is, you know, for me to spend more time with them, has to come second place to their need of getting more sleep. So I don't know, that's all I have to say. I know that we all love our kids and I know we all want the best of it. We just kind of right now disagree on how to get there. I hope that we support this Board of Education budget because I think it's time.
Thank you, Monica.
Thanks.
Next, we have Laura Catherwood.
Hi, my name is Laura Catherwood. I'm at 274 Putnam Road, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to speak this evening in support of fully funding the Board of Education's budget. I'm a parent of 2 elementary school children at South School, and I believe the district has demonstrated, particularly in this trying year, fiscal responsibility and transparency, as well as extremely strong leadership under Dr. Lutzy. His actions and decisions through these challenging times have made our family proud to be a part of the New Canaan school system. With respect to operational expenses in the budget, The Board of Education has responsibly forecasted and budgeted for these expenses so they can plan accordingly and deliver a high-quality education for New Canaan students. With respect to school start times, I'm confident that the start time options have been thoroughly and thoughtfully analyzed from every angle over the past few years, and that our leaders are proposing the best possible solution. I know that we're not alone as a family that moved to New Canaan for the exceptional schools, and we hope the town continues to view the schools as a priority and remains committed to providing them with the financial support they need to continue to succeed. So I ask for your support in fully funding the Board of Education's budget. Thank you so much for your time and service to our town.
Thank you, Laura. Jamie Burns.
Hey, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Jamie Burns. I live at 154 Indian Waters Drive. I'm against any funding that would be directed to the proposed changes to school start times. I think, first of all, it fails to adequately address the issue at hand, and it arrives at a solution that is at the expense of one particular group, and that would be our youngest students. Secondly, I think it's unfounded in science. I don't think we've determined, or certainly it has not been shown by the board or this district, that we have supporting evidence that would say that it is beneficial to elementary school children. I think we need to find a solution that benefits everybody. And unfortunately, as I said, we've so far failed to formulate a plan that does so. The proposed change to high school age kid, or it benefits high school age kids at the expense of the elementary schoolers. I sincerely doubt that the proposed changes are consistent with what we were trying to do or accomplish in our school system. And I don't think it's the message we want to send prospective new residents. Moving forward with the proposed changes is akin to telling elementary school families that they just don't matter as much as the high school families, and that their priorities aren't as equivalent in our view. I don't think that's the best approach. And support for the school start time change seems to be predicated on selected anecdotes relating to the potential impact on elementary children. Multiple anecdotes is not data. There's no scientific basis that I've heard so far from the board or Dr. Lutzy that claims or supports that the changes are healthy to all students. It seems to be, the viewpoint seems to be correlated to, rather, the ages of the children and that for each family. And I think we can find that the split runs down that line. I appreciate what the board and Dr. Lutzy have done for a school system, particularly this year, but as it relates to the start time issue, I think we need to do better. We need to figure out a solution that benefits all students, even if that means taking more time to evaluate, create, and fund the solution. And perhaps it's time for new eyes on the problem, given our inability so far to find an appropriate solution that benefits everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren Buerlein. Lauren?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, I am Lauren Buerlein. I live at 655 Carter Street in New Canaan. I have a second grader at East and a fifth grader at Saks. I wanted to lend my support to Dr. Lutzy and the entire Board of Education. I'm very appreciative of all the work that everybody has done so far. I support a fully funded budget for next year. I think there's been a lot of hard work. I think there's been some implications from others that they have not looked at every possible scenario and alternative under the sun. And I, as somebody who has observed this for a few years now, I think that they have kind of dissected this issue and have come up with the best alternative. And that is what has been presented here. So I am a working parent. I commute to New York City, and I don't think that, this is going to be as detrimental to the small children as some people are saying. And I just in general would like to lend my support. And I'm a big believer in Dr. Lutzy and all he has done for our town.
Thank you. Jane Benton.
Hi, thanks so much for letting me speak tonight. I'm going to keep my comments very brief. I'm Jane Benton. We live at 106 Adams Lane. We have two kids that have started in kindergarten, gone all the way through the public school systems here. I have a high school senior and a seventh grader at Saks. I just want to take this moment, of course, to echo everybody else's thanks and gratitude to Dr. Lutzy for the extraordinary job he's done here in keeping our kids in school. We have a lot of family on the West Coast, and it's really unbelievable that most of them have not seen the inside of a classroom for well over a year. So we're very, very grateful for his work. And to that end, I know I've been involved with this since the very start, almost 5 years ago. I've spoken at many of these public forums, and I have always given my support, and now always lending my support to the full passing of the budget. Many have said that tonight and have spoken about research, and has the research been complete? I'm a firm believer in the American Academy of Pediatrics and the AMA and their recommendations. And I think that it's a case where we believe in our leaders and follow the science. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Ann Wagner? All right, we lost Ann. Giacomo Landi.
Hi, can I talk about something besides start times?
Sure.
Okay. I'm struck by the similarities between two issues before the town council. Both issues are proposed by volunteer bodies of the New Canaan residents with a passion and commitment to their organizations. Both are full of very capable and committed members, are trying to do what's best for New Canaan and their respective organizations, and are dealing with long-standing open issues. And yes, both are very much funded by town residents, historically, presently, and perpetually into the future. Neither survives without the town, and as such is a subset of the town and its residents in reality, even if legally it is not arranged that way. So what do we do with such proposals that include town funding and alteration of the physical and practical nature of the town? Do we just accept them? Do we overrule them? Or do we try to find a compromise between their goals and the town needs? For the library, almost all agree it should be improved. The question before us is, do we have an absolute requirement to tear down the 1913 structure? The argument of the library being private and the town cannot tell them what to do just does not hold water. Look at the financial resources the town provides and who the library caters to. Does it only cater to and take money from residents from other towns? Most recently, the town provided access to the center school lot so the library could save significant construction funds, diminishing the value of town real estate in the process. That lot could be especially valuable if zoning changes are made in Hartford, pushing more dense housing, or for a new police station, or for a senior living center. We've talked a lot about school start times, same issue as the library. For some reason, only one solution is possible, and nothing else could possibly work, no matter how many facts you show. And I hear tonight a lot of things are teased out about how things can improve, but we know what's on the table, which is a mid-year start at 7:45 for elementary kids, and which means you're going to be on the bus before 7:20. So it's time the town takes control and finds a solution to both issues. It's clear to me the solutions are pretty easy. Keep the 1913 structure as a separate building, and for school start, find a solution that works for all. Neither outcome should be controversial, and frankly will bring the town together to support both proposed changes, rather than this unnecessary fissure that has been created.
Thank you, Giacomo. Could you give me your address, please?
Sorry, 313 Elm.
Okay, Ann Wagner.
Hi, thank you. Sorry about that earlier. At 94 Elm Place. I would like to thank you all for your service to our community, and thank you for allowing all of us to speak tonight. We have lived in New Canaan for 15 years and have 3 children. 2 are at the high school and 1 is at Saks.
And there's a lot of feedback. Something's brushing. We're having a hard time hearing you. Try again.
Should I start?
Yep, there you go. Start again.
Can I start over? Okay. Hello, I am Ann Wagner. I live at 94 Elm Place. Thank you for allowing us to speak, and thank you for all of you for your service to our community. We have lived in New Canaan for 15 years and have 3 children. 2 are at the high school and 1 is at Saks. I am speaking tonight to ask that you fully fund the Board of Ed operating budget. Our Board of Ed is asking for a very reasonable increase, and our town finances are extremely strong. As we know, the Board of Ed is elected. We have entrusted them to do a certain job, and they have done it. It is also simply not the year to make cuts to a school budget, especially when our town can afford it. Our teachers and students went above and beyond in the midst of a pandemic. It sends a terrible message to them to cut operating costs and ultimately valued programs. Dr. Lutzy, the Board of Ed, and our administrations have done an incredible job keeping schools in person for so much of the year, while so many other areas of the country have remained remote. That is one more point to note and validate the credibility of the Board of Ed. They have diligently worked countless hours to bring our kids back in a healthy and safe way. The investment our town made in the operating funds for the schools is the reason they could safely open. Again, we have elected the Board of Ed to do a job. They have done that job and we need to trust them. Second guessing all of their work causes a flawed system. We have an excellent school system, but we cannot continue to maintain or even improve it with cuts. We do not want operating cuts to affect programs and staffing. In closing, please remember what this budget is for. We have all been through a very challenging year, but it is our kids who have endured the most hardships, mentally, emotionally, and academically. The Board of Ed needs a fully funded budget in order to protect our kids and have the healthiest environment possible. The year after a pandemic is simply not the time to cut an educational budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather Moore.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Heather Moore and I live at 10 Snowberry Lane. I'm speaking tonight, as I have before, to express my strong support for the Board of Ed budget, including the funding for healthier school start times. I'm going to try to stick to the 2 minutes, so I'm going to jump right in. I know there are some parents who are concerned about the effects of the new schedule on the elementary children. I don't believe that Dr. Lutze would ever suggest a program that hurts any of the students in New Canaan. We've talked a lot about the science tonight, and I think the science is important. So I set out on a mission to find a pediatric sleep expert to provide an opinion on our specific start time proposal for all of our children, grades K through 12. I reached out to Dr. Judith Owens. She is the director of sleep medicine at Boston Children's Hospital and is a professor of neurology at Harvard Medical School. She is a pediatric sleep expert, and her work has been repeatedly cited by the American Academy of Pediatrics. In other words, she is extremely qualified. I shared the details of our current school schedule with her and our proposed 3-tier schedule with her, and asked her 2 questions. One, I asked her, will elementary students be harmed by a 7:45 a.m. start time? And 2, from a sleep quality point of view, which one of the 2 schedules provides the most benefit to the most students? These are the questions we're struggling with, and I really wanted an expert opinion. Shockingly, she actually responded to me. I was floored. Her reaction to our district start time proposal was very positive. She did not feel that the proposed schedule would be harmful to our elementary students. She said that bedtimes can be manipulated for young children, and I quote, with the likelihood that most student bedtimes would fall in the 8 to 9 p.m. range. She also said that there will always be outliers, and we know that. But given all the factors involved, and again, I quote, she said that our solution sounds doable and appropriate from a sleep health standpoint. That says a lot to me. Additionally, she said that our 8:30 a.m. high school start time is a clear, evidence-based improvement over the 7:30 a.m. current start time, as there is overwhelming evidence that early start times are harmful to adolescents. So I'll keep this short. And in closing, it's clear that we need to address the adolescent health crisis that is currently harming our teenagers every day. It just doesn't make sense to wait any longer. I ask you to please fully fund the Board of Ed budget, including the funding for healthy school start times. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Ryan Lee.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Ryan Lee, 4 Birchwood Avenue. I have 1 high school senior, 1 high school sophomore, and 1 child will enter kindergarten next year. I'd like to thank the Town Council for their hard work, especially Tucker, who deserves a medal. I would also like to thank Dr. Lutze and the Board of Education for all the hard work that they've done during the pandemic. And I would like to say I'm fully supportive of healthy start times and a fully funded budget. Having watched 2 children go through elementary, middle and high school, I can say without doubt that once children hit their teenage years, the early start times start to have an effect on their schooling. And I'm already dreading the thought of my youngest child, who's going to enter kindergarten, actually getting to that stage and having to get up that early during teenage years. I would say also, having just had the clock change, you're forcing children who are 15, 16 years old to not just get up at 6:30 in the morning, but their body clock, it's 5:30 in the morning. It's even more ridiculous. The science is there, support the science, support the Board of Education, do the right thing. My 5-year-old goes to bed at 8:15 and gets up at 6:15 a.m. I'm not sure where this 6:30 p.m. bedtime comes from. I know all families are different. My teenage children they don't sit all night looking at blue light, looking at phones, looking at computer screens. This doesn't happen. So please support the budget, please support the healthy start times, and please do the thing that's right for all the children. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Baker.
Thanks, Tucker. And thank you so much for listening to us tonight, Town Council. My name is Sarah Baker. I've lived in New Canaan for 11 years, 238 Old Stamford Road. My husband and I have 2 children, one in 4th grade at South and one in 6th grade at Sachs. So we have been very familiar with the 8:15 start time for several years, and then with the 9:30 a.m. preschool start time. So for us, that has always been an issue. We've both always worked, and it's been okay. It's been okay, that early start time. So to push it just a little bit earlier for the elementary school students, I just want to assure parents that haven't had to do that yet, maybe your East or West parents, that start time for South has really been okay. And we have seen our kids, and we are spend plenty of time as a family together. And so I'm speaking tonight to ask that you please vote to fully fund the Board of Ed's budget, including Dr. Lutzie's recommendation for healthier school start times for next year. And when I look around to the surrounding towns, especially my nieces out in Branford, Connecticut, I think how lucky we are in New Canaan to have the leadership that we have. We are so profoundly lucky for Dr. Lutzie and the Board of Ed and their thoughtful and thorough and detail-oriented approach, making sure that our kids could safely learn in person this year. And it's led to healthier, happier kids. We know we can trust their COVID mitigation strategies that they've put in place, and that those COVID mitigation strategies have always been fully backed by research with the health and safety of our kids as their main priority. And I know that as much thoughtfulness and research has gone into the creation of the school budget, and specifically the school start time schedule. Dr. Lutzie and the Board of Ed have put in countless hours evaluating so many different scenarios for start times that'll be the most streamlined, cost efficient. And we know that not everybody's going to be happy, but what we've learned from this past year is that we can all do hard things. And what we're asking the town council to do is to consider that research. Allowing our middle and high school students to get more sleep is a public health issue. You've already heard that it's recommended by the CDC, the AMA, the AAP. And anecdotally, I know that our 6th grade daughter, she's already starting to need more sleep, and she's miserable when she doesn't get it. So having to have our rising 5th graders start school at 9:15 is a sacrifice that we as a family are willing to make. It's not convenient. Like I said, we both work, but it's a change that we're willing to roll with. And finally, this last year of COVID has brought about tremendous change to the town of New Canaan. And we've seen so many new families move to town. And these new families are going to be looking to you and to the Board of Ed to see how you treat your school children, if you consider them important enough to fully fund the school budget. Many families move to New Canaan for the schools, and what you do now will determine whether or not they decide to stay, put their kids in the public schools, and put down roots in this town. So please fully fund the school budget. And let those families know that you're thinking of them and of a bright future for all the kids in New Canaan. Thank you.
Thank you. Leanne Lee.
Good evening. My name is Leanne Lee. I live at 10 Strawberry Hill Road. It is getting late, so I'll just cut to the chase. I am against the budget piece that ties to the new start date for the elementary school. How can I ask my daughter of 5 years old to get up at 6:30 or 7 every day to attend the school, while me as an adult cannot even manage such morning routine? If I have a job where I would be asked to start at such early time each day, I would have quit it. I echo with other working parents with young kids that this new start date will have severe negative impact on parents and children. I am a single mother taking care of my daughter full time. How could she get quality time with me under such new time schedule? If this passes, you are forcing me either move away from New Canaan or sacrifice a precious time with my daughter. I don't care about scientific studies. They don't struggle with me every day as a parent. So there you have it. With that, I close my comments. Have a good night.
Thank you, Leanne. Emily Raderman. You're muted.
Thanks, Leanne. I feel similarly, and sorry, I live at 7 Thurton Drive. I moved here 3 years ago against the better judgment of many people because New Canaan is just too far, and I would never see my children if I worked in the city. And I do, and I commuted 4 days a week. And until COVID, I barely got any time with them in the evenings. And now that I do have some time with them, it is precious. I can tell you that my children who are 4.5 years old, they cherish the 30 minutes that I get with them right now because I walk through the door at 6:30. And I am a huge advocate for bringing new working families into this town. And I don't know if I could support the concept that we wouldn't be supporting working mothers and that we would effectively leave an entire growing demographic out of the plan to come up with a solution that doesn't help everyone. I think high schoolers should get as much sleep as they can possibly get. I think they should have as much health attached to their education, but to have my child out in the dark and have to come home off of the train at 6:30 p.m. and they will probably be in bed by 6:30, 6:45. I just think that that's undoable. And frankly, if I had known this and if this had been in process when I was making the choice to move here, I probably would not have moved here. And I love this town and I'm so happy that I did make this move, but it kills me to think that we are really stuck in the 1950s and not supporting working mothers and two working income families. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Schwedel.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for the time today. Andrew Schwedel. I live at 57 Wells Lane. My wife and I have been here for 11 years, and we have 2 children in West School, a 3rd grader and a 1st grader. And first of all, thank you to the Town Council, the Board of Ed, and all the parents who turned out tonight to share their feelings on this issue. I'd like to speak in favor of fully funding the Board of Education request without modification, including the support for the Healthy Start initiative. And, you know, it's clear just listening to the comments that there are a lot of strong feelings on this issue on both sides. And I fully respect and understand the challenges and the sentiments expressed by those who are against it. But for me, the rationale here is compelling to follow the judgment and experience of Dr. Lutzy and the team that have researched this extensively for several years and that have earned their credibility through years of service, as well as in particular, their performance through COVID. I spend a lot of time talking to people around the country and in other countries, and we are tremendously fortunate that our kids have mostly been able to be in school or at best in a hybrid or at worst in a hybrid mode while many others have been fully virtual. And I think we have to give huge credit to Dr. Lutzy and his team, all the educators for their planning, their research, their agility. And I respect the judgment and the research that they've put into this tough issue. So thank you, everyone, and thank you for listening, and hopefully we can support this request.
Thank you. The last name I see is Keeley. If you could give me your last name, please, Keeley. Address.
It's Keely Norton. Can you hear me?
Yes, Keeley.
Sorry, I'm trying to save bandwidth by not having my camera on the whole time. Keely Norton, 249 Hickok Road. First of all, thank you again for the time. I know a lot of people spoke and I know it's getting late. So I really do appreciate it, especially the fact that you're all volunteering to make our town a better place. I really do appreciate your time. I'm speaking to express my support to follow the science and support healthy school start times for the 2021-2022 school year and beyond. During this pandemic, the schools have done an incredible job adjusting and pivoting when feedback warranted it. Distance learning was not ideal, but one thing that became abundantly clear to my husband and I, as the parents of a 7th grader, was that the extra sleep is dearly needed in the morning, regardless of when we remove screens at night or make her, quote, go to bed. Because going to bed doesn't mean going to sleep. She sits there and stares at the ceiling. Her body just doesn't let her fall asleep most nights until 11 or so. When Saks adjusted its schedule last spring to start an hour later, it made a world of difference for my child and so many of my friends and her classmates. Please support and fund the plan for healthy start times. There may not be a perfect answer. Some logistical issues for younger students may need to be sorted out, but New Canaan has shown it can overcome just about anything when we work together and do what is best for all of our residents. And as a working mom myself, I can tell you that the late elementary school start times at East were a bear for me. We had to pay extra money for the early school drop off, and we still had to pay money for someone to get the kid at the end of the day. But you know, we'll figure it out, and it's gonna be overall good. But I can tell you, I cannot get my kid out of bed in the morning as a 7th grader. And I'm doing everything right. Like some other parents said, I'm not allowing the screen, the phone and the computer all get plugged in where I can see them. They don't go into her bedroom. She does not have a TV. I don't know what else to do. But she's a completely different kid when she gets the sleep, and it's the kid I want to have with me. And I don't want to have the kid that's a zombie and that's grumpy and you know, I don't know, facing problems like the medical community says of depression and you know, tired driving and accidents. And there's a host of things that have been proven. So please, please, please support the full budget of Dr. Lutzy and his team. They've shown tremendous care and consideration, and I really think they deserve our support. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. And John Engel, that's the last comment. That's the last hand I see.
Thank you, Tucker, and thank you everybody who spoke. I learned a lot tonight. I took notes. I don't know if you can see those, but I took notes. Not just whether you were in support or against, but you know, I learned from Steve Summers, don't let pursuit of perfection get in the way of a good plan. And maybe you feel you shouldn't interfere in school business. Yeah, a lot of these comments really did resonate with us. So I really appreciate all of you, 96 of you, for coming and joining us tonight. It's very important that your town council hears from you directly, either through letters, but very powerfully when you come and attend the meetings and talk to us directly. I'm sure Dr. Lutzy feels the same way. I'm sure my counterpart, Katrina, also feels the same way, that it's very important that we hear the parent input. So thank you very much. This ends the public hearing portion of the meeting. Next on our agenda is a budget review and discussion. We don't have anything specific in mind for that. I guess this is just a placeholder in the agenda for us to be able to talk to each other, and maybe to Dr. Lutzy, maybe to Board of Ed members, maybe to other members of the administration, ask questions in order to come to a more perfect vote in a couple days. So does anybody want to raise their hand and make a comment on the budget review and discussion that we have in front of us? I could keep going. but
Sorry, I had a bit of trouble with Zoom. I was trying to raise my hand to get a comment in earlier. Can I still slide a comment in here under 2 minutes?
sure, I
Thank
can't
you
make a
so much.
speech
I
about
appreciate
how important it is and then not let you speak. So go ahead.
Just to round out, I think a lot of what I want to say was covered. 2 points that weren't covered. I'm speaking out against the change of start times. One big reason that wasn't covered, parents of preschool children and elementary school children have been very under-engaged on this issue to date. It started off as an issue of teen sleep, which resonates with everyone. Who wouldn't want that for teenagers? But what became apparent over time was that that would take sleep away from young children. Preschool parents are still waking up to this issue. There's been a huge reluctance to share the information, to the point that many preschool parents I've talked to have not been able to even send out mass emails without bias, just saying what's going on, saying, oh, that's not appropriate, these are the venues. Same thing at the elementary level, a principal saying you can't email the class list, letting parents know. That is a deep concern of mine. No matter where you sit on the issue, everybody should have the information, and preschool parents are in the dark. And this is going to be a huge slap in the face. I happen to have a kindergartner at West. I'm 738 Weed Street, by the way. It's Pua and Christian Keeland, Shaylon, if we're pronouncing it correctly. That is not fair, and it's not right. It's been posited as a teen sleep issue, but what we're looking at is taking away sleep from our littlest learners. That troubles me, that people are not aware of what's happening. I think the second issue is survey results show that teens themselves don't necessarily want this change. I know with my cadre of babysitters, they have 5:30 a.m. sports practices, they have 5:30 a.m. church youth groups. So how many are actually going to take advantage of this? I can tell you right now that every single elementary student is going to get the sleep that's allotted to them. I would have to tear my kids out of bed an hour early. Little children do not move easily in the morning. They don't get out of bed early. It would cause a huge shift and a disruption to my own family. We're fortunate that we're not a dual working family, but I have a lot of friends who are, as you've seen, quite emotional. And then we haven't looked at the psychological damage that young children may face. We also are only going on anecdotal evidence for young children. The one study we have to date from University of Kentucky shows that there is harm to elementary students when you move back start times to 7:45 a.m. So we're going on anecdotal evidence. And I think to spend this kind of money to make this change when we don't have hard data to support the impact on our youngest learners would be short-sighted. So that, like I said, I keep it short and sweet, but I think those points were entirely covered. I fully support the New Canaan public school system. They've done an incredible job this year. I think we should have start times that work for all of our kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How much, does anybody else on the town council want to have a discussion about basically where your heads are at, where you're going to vote, or, you know, whether you're even on the fence on this issue, while we have 96 people still in the room wondering, you know, which way we're going, and what our reaction has been to these comments. So does anybody want to go? Tom? Oh, I see your screen lighting up like Hollywood Squares.
No, not on start times, no.
Okay, on anything.
Well, I just wanted to clarify, because I don't think we're going to meet again until the night we vote. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that in my perfect world, before we vote on the overall school budget, that we would have resolved the questions that are being discussed with Board of Finance and Board of Education. It looks as a practical matter, we won't have 100% clear guidance on the outcome of those discussions, but everything I've seen indicates that both sides of that discussion are committed to a solution that would involve special appropriations, and I really trust the process. So I'm just giving people an advance notice that it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot more specific information available until next Wednesday, but I'm encouraged that it's the right thing to do to approve the Board of Finance budget, because they're working so hard to get that resolved.
So what Tom is referring to, if you haven't been following the back and forth over the last few days, few weeks, is that the the Board of Finance reduced the requested Board of Education budget by $3.1 million, but committed to restoring the full budget through special appropriations, meaning they would provide all of the COVID expenses in time for them to be spent, budgeted and spent, but they would do so through a special appropriations process. And part of their reason was that COVID expenses are reimbursable by the state. And then the second was conflicting points of view over the healthcare reserves. And the Board of Education is committed, again, to making sure that those are adequately funded and funded in time. Tom has led the town council.
Oh, wait, it's going to get good. You should listen.
I heard a little bit of feedback. Tom has led the committee, our subcommittee on education, and trying to make sure that the Board of Finance and the Board of Education are talking about this, and that the Board of Education is satisfied with the ultimate solution that was sort of handed to them by the Board of Finance. And so what I hear you saying, Tom, is that the parties are talking and are committed to working this out and fully funding the Board of Education budget, maybe not the way the Board of Education had originally asked for, but in a way that they can live with. Is that what we think at this moment?
I think so.
Okay. Okay. I know that it's a complicated subject because the two attorneys, the town attorney has rendered opinions and the school attorney has rendered opinions, and I'm not qualified to know which one is right. And those opinions continued even this evening to come out. I got a letter and Kevin got a letter from Ira Bloom, the town attorney, saying not so fast. So we're still working on this. I'm going to just tell the people who are still interested in the hot subject that I personally am going to vote in favor of fully funding the Board of Education budget and the town budget when it comes up. I don't anticipate any motions to cut the Board of Education budget, the various capital budgets, the various operating budgets. I expect that we are going to pass that the town council is indicating to me so far that they're going to pass this budget. So,
John, I've never indicated that to you. So let's just.
I know, and that's why I'm saying I need to hear from you now because we're running out of time. So I don't know that it'll be unanimous, and there's still time to convince people, and that's what this is for. And if nobody's going to talk, we're not going to go into caucus and talk. We're going to have to talk now. So let's talk about this.
Right. Well, to feed off my comments from last Tuesday with Dr. Lutzy, I'm a little more focused right now on the process of the plan and some things that I feel are just missing. And let me start by saying, the difference in our conversation today or this budget season versus last season on this particular issue with the school start time. I mean, there seems to be a far more awareness of the effort to change the school start times. We've seen a lot more participation from those who are opposed to the plan, but not necessarily the concept. And I thought it was a lot of progress made, actually in a very good way, that now I can see more of a desire that, look, we get it, there needs to be a change, but this particular change is not the right one. And so I'm looking at that closer, right? And what I haven't seen anyone tell me, point me to or cite is an impact analysis, okay, that was performed regarding this particular plan that's being put forward, saying this is the only plan that we can do, okay? Because the impact
is just as important as the goal you're trying to achieve. And sometimes there's too high a price to pay for to get wedded to one option. So here's a for instance, right? And we've all seen emails, the emails on this issue coming in from both sides. And like I said the other night, both sides have to be. John, can you hear me? You're talking, but I can't hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Like I said, both sides have to be respected. This isn't about opposition completely to changing the start times. The issue is how do we get there, and how do we minimize the impact to the families, right? I haven't seen an impact analysis. I've seen emails come in from even the daycare in town that provides daycare for our teachers, decrying what will be a real problem for her ability to provide daycare for our teachers. And one thing I always hear is how amazing our teachers are, and they are, and how we need to make sure that they have a proper work environment so they can be, optimal in their teaching of our students. So that concerns me. That means that there was no discussion on that particular point. What probably concerns me most, again, with a lack of any impact analysis, is there's another educational institution in this town with hundreds and hundreds of kids. And despite the efforts of the head of that program to have a dialogue with the district, there's been no response, and that's the St. A's CCD program. There's a huge impact to that program if it was to go into effect in this coming fall, and it's a tremendous problem to have it implemented midstream for that program. So, that's a problem. You put forth a plan, and then I think what I heard some people saying was, well, this is our plan, and then we'll kind of fiddle around on the edges to, minimize the impact and work that way. That's kind of reverse of what the process is. And again, remember, getting to the goal of accommodating both sides. So the plan should be, here's our plan to address all of the impact of what's going to happen. Okay. And it's going to cost X. It's a nice package. There's buy-in from the community on all sides. And not everyone is going to get 100% of what they want. That's compromise. I negotiate deals day in and day out. And if you want to get to a deal, if it's one way and that's it, that's not a deal. And I think in this particular plan, it's 100% accommodation on one side and 100% loss on the other. So there has to be some better process implemented here to have buy-in from everybody. And I know Westport gets cited as as one of our as a comparator that they got it done. That's right, they did. And you know how they did it? They had a constituted panel of teachers, parents, the school administrators. I think students were involved. They sat, and it was an actual working group. It was more than a process of inviting some in to have some, offer comments and discussions, and then have, the BOE go on ahead and then have their debates. So like, why couldn't that have happened here? And maybe it still can. If the current plan is to implement this program sometime in the early 2022, then what's the problem with putting the brakes on, constituting that kind of a panel, having an actual impact analysis that's presented, okay, so everyone can again have that buy-in. I look at it, and these families on the other side, who are opposed to this plan, I think this plan blows them up. I really do. And on the flip side, 100% here, every heartfelt word that was said tonight and in all the emails, and I've read all of them, okay, the kids having a difficult time getting up, and it's impacting their lifestyles. So, the current schedule, the kids are miserable at the higher grades. If we change it, the kids are going to be miserable, and families are going to be greatly impacted. We can't be a town that's the best we can do. It's just wrong. So again, not saying don't get this done, but we have to figure it out. I mean, the other night when my colleague Sven England said, can we talk about maybe widening a road? Maybe. can we talk to the police about changing traffic patterns and working on the traffic lights? Like, were they involved at all in the process? I don't know. But I can tell you what, there's no impact analysis, and that should have been brought to us, to the BOF. It should have been brought to town council saying, we've done the impact analysis. We had buy-in from the community on both sides. It's going to cost this, approve it. Then you'd have a heck of a lot more. You'd have my support. But right now, I think half the equation is missing. And I still have a great trouble saying, yeah, you know what, let's go on ahead and spend this money, knowing that there's all these unknowns. So, you know, those are my kind of general points right now as I'm continuing to consider this, because those are the things that I've asked, I've read the research, I've listened to everybody, and there are points that just nobody has addressed. And I'm having a difficult time, because, you know, when you say, you know, we can't accommodate the younger grades, because that's just the way it is. Well, that's unfortunately just not good enough, not in this town. And to pit each other, and I'm seeing now, and it's very unfortunate that it's getting kind of a little nasty, this debate, and that's not who we are as a town. So I hope we can pull back and pump the brakes. Why don't we have that committee to work off of the plan that Dr. Lutzi's put forward? Let's have an impact analysis that's going to address these issues with these families. Let's try to avoid giving a lot of families a nice big backdoor tax increase in terms of the childcare that they have to get. Let's figure it out how to accommodate both sides of this issue.
Thank you, Mike. I think that was well said, very eloquent. I don't disagree. This is not a great plan, and a lot of people are being affected adversely, and the community is being torn apart by this. But I will point out that the Board of Education put this forth as their best solution a year ago, and when we did not fund it, they had the opportunity. And all these parents had the opportunity to engage with the Board of Education for the last year, and they've come back with the same plan. And we challenged Dr. Lutzi in 2 meetings about this plan, and Katrina about this plan. And we said, are you sure we can't throw more money at it? And as Bar Rucci pointed out in her comments, she said, you know, I felt like Bar Rucci was talking directly to me. Throwing money at this isn't going to fix it. Because she heard me plead, is there any way we can solve this by putting more money toward it? And the answer from the Board of Education was no. So the question I have for you is, even if it's an imperfect plan, is it the role of the town council to second guess the Board of Education?
Yes, it is. It is, John, because the whole point of a budget review process is exactly that. Spending money is setting policy. If what you posed was true, okay, that, you know, well, how you posed it is that we would have no role, no authority over the budget. It would be the Board of Ed, or any other, not just the Board of Ed, it could be the police, it could be fire, any one of them, it could be Tiger saying, guys, here's our budget, that's it, sign off. What is the point of our process, our review process, if we don't decide what the dollars of the taxpayers should be spent on? And this was the same issue I raised last year. We get voted in as a town council, as a town body, empowered to look at the budget and saying, are we spending these tax dollars in the wisest way possible? So we're exactly positioned to make the decision on this, and we listen to the experts on it, and we have the statutory authority to decide whether we're going to agree with this. So yeah, we can. So you know, I don't. It's no different than telling any of the other department heads that they can't have dollars to do something.
No, it's not.
How is it not? How?
By state law. Because state law, the town council has no control over how the Board of Education spends their money.
Right, but they're asking us for the spend on this particular dollar, right?
No. We vote on the whole budget.
No, I get that. We vote on the whole budget. And we all agree, we all have the authority to reduce. Is that correct? We all agree with that?
And
Right.
we could take all that money for school start times and take it out of the budget.
Right, but we all agree that we have.
Only the amount. We can't say then how the school will, accommodate that reduced amount.
Right, no, I understand that. We can only reduce the total amount and not tell them, no, you will do X, Y, and Z. I 100% agree with you on that, yes. But again, the point is that we do have authority to reduce the budget. If the Board of Ed decides to take their money and spend it on how they deem necessary, but we still have the authority to reduce the budget. So if they're saying we need this money for this program, we're saying, look, we're looking at your budget. We think it's too much. So we're going to reduce it by 500 grand. Okay, fine. The Board of Ed can turn around and say, okay, well, we're going to find the money somewhere else and do it. I understand that. So again, the point is that, but our input here is critical. And clearly when we have so many residents appealing on both sides of the issue saying, don't change it. Others saying, change it. That's precisely the point, is that we're supposed to be involved here. So just to say, hey, look, Board of Ed said that this is the best plan. That's the end of the story. Well, it's not the end of the story. And John, I have to take issue with what you said before, that the Board of Ed came to us last year. We said no to the plan, and then it's been a year and there's been no engagement. They haven't engaged with the board. Okay, so let's back up a second. Who knew that the Board of Ed was even going to put this plan forward? I think we saw it in like an op-ed or something like a few months ago that this was coming back at us. It wasn't like it was last March and then come April 15 last year, everyone knew this was going to be back on the schedule. So you can't just say, well, no one really cared enough to do anything, because that's just not what the facts are. Who knew this was coming? So obviously once people started waking up and seeing, wait, hold on a second, what? Now you're seeing far more engagement on it from those who, again, are not opposed to a change, just this particular plan. And again, why wasn't there a plan that was followed with Westport? If there are comparator on a DRG in the positive way, then they should be also looked at this way. And again, why was there no impact analysis? There's clearly a massive downside here to this particular plan, massive. And we can't just say, sorry, tough luck, because I've heard that a bunch tonight. And all I'm saying is there has to be a better way to work this through so everyone gets something out of this versus the one side. That's what I'm getting at. So that to come to us to say the Board of Ed needs this extra money to do this particular job, and we're saying, look, we have issue with approving a budget that you need this money for. Well, I just don't think we should be in a position where we're saying, okay, fine, go on ahead. I just think there's too many variables in there.
John?
I'd like to speak too.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Rich.
Yeah,
Rich,
I
go
just
ahead.
I'd like to weigh in. John asked where we stand, and I'd like to tell everybody where I stand. I think the budget we have gotten from both the town and the Board of Education is an excellent budget. I think it's tight. I think it's efficient. I think they've done a very good job of putting it together. We're hung up on a couple things here, one of which is the school start times. And the way I look at school start times is we've been working on this for 4 or 5 years. We're never going to get there if we don't get there at some point. This has us to get a start, and everybody seems to think that's where we're going to end. I don't think we're going to end there. If there's problems that can be tuned in, they'll be tuned in. And I would not downplay that. And I believe that it is the best thing overall for the school district. I've got 5 grandkids in the school district. I'm in this as well. And I think this is the best thing for the school district. And the things that really played on me as we talk about this is it isn't the money. It is that they can't figure out how to do a 2-tier system. I initially thought we should do a 2-tier system. Let's make this really good. Let's make everybody be fair. And it defies physics. And people just don't want to believe occasionally things defy physics. And I believe at this point it defies physics. Can it be made better? Probably. But we got 120 miles of road and we seem to want to ignore that. You know, I mean, Darien got, I don't know, 50. Yeah, it's just different. And that's what creates the problem. And as many times as Dr. Lutzy will explain the physics, we don't seem to listen to that. I believe that this is the case of if we go forward here, it is the better winning over the perfect. It isn't perfect, but I believe it's better for the community. And so I'm going to vote for the budget.
But Richard, I mean, do you ignore the impact on these families that have came before us tonight? I mean, really, are you just saying, listen, I hear it, but they're going to figure it out? I mean, if that's the case, then that's the case. That's fine. That's your position. But do we think it's okay? The woman who was crying and all these other parents saying, look, I'm not saying don't change it, but we have to do something different. I mean, where is the community buy-in? I mean, we can't just ignore that, or can we? Because that to me is what I hear when I see how people are saying, I'm just going to vote for it.
I'm not ignoring it. I'm not ignoring it. I've got grandkids at West School that are going to impact exactly this way. And they're talking to me. They understand what's going to happen. I understand what's going to happen, and everybody's going to get used to it, or we're going to come up with a way that it's going to be done a little bit differently. But I believe in physical constraints. There are physical constraints in making this happen. Can we work through them in time? Perhaps we can. I've got some ideas that maybe you can make it better. But I think we need to start, and this will start. Just my opinion, Mike.
Christina and Sven have had their hands up for quite a while.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I'll stand by what I said on Tuesday night, you know, that if we have a physical problem at South Avenue and Farm Road, then we should investigate that and see what we can do in order to break that bottleneck, and then give the logisticians, you know, a chance to look at it and see if that actually makes a significant difference. You know, the point is that, you know, yes, we approve a school budget, is a lump sum. And, you know, like I always say, you know, if they decide they want to get rid of English, you know, for K through 12 in order to pay for, you know, for the start times, that's fine. We have an election in November, which happens before the implementation of this. I suggest that people think about, you know, who's running and what they're running for the Board of Education, and make your voices heard and show up at the ballot box. The only other solution you have is take this whole thing to referendum. Personally, I've supported the New Canaan Public School System. I am a product of K through 12 in New Canaan Public Schools, and I will continue to vote for this budget. But you've got other things that you can work out. You've got some time, and if it takes asphalt, I'm sure that we can find money for asphalt between now and freeze up. Thank you.
So if I may, my concern is the following. It's not the money, it's the time and the fact that they are the littlest citizens of New Canaan that are going to be out on the street waiting for that bus, with or without parents, depending on the grade level, and it will be dark. And I really think it's a very dangerous situation. Having seen many near misses with middle school kids when they were waiting for the SACS bus, I think this is a huge mistake. And for that reason alone, I am leaning to not voting for it. It has nothing to do with the budget. It has to do with safety and the fact that you're going to have these little kids waiting for a bus and it's still dark out. And in the winter with snow plows, the whole thing, I am saying, I just can't do this. I was not expecting the time to be this early for the littlest ones. And I think it needs to be reworked. And yes, there are ways to make it work. And if we had more buses, they could all leave and start at the same time. This is not acceptable for me. Sorry.
So, you know, I just wanted to say that, remind ourselves that if we knew this problem was coming as a hypothetical 10 years ago, and we decided how to staff this, who would we put in charge of logistics and good judgment to design the right system? And maybe if we had a chance to get one of the 20 top superintendents in the country to work this problem for us, we would pick that up in a heartbeat. That's who we have. And we're not listening to him. We're not trusting him. That this idea that kids are going to stand in the dark is absolutely wrong. I went out this past, Chris, let me finish. I went out this past winter and I stood outside every day to find out if there's a single day when kids would be standing in the dark at 7:08. There were none. If you look at the science on twilight, legal twilight, it's a law that cars are permitted to turn off their headlights, and buses and all vehicles, well before 7:08, because there's adequate light. I mean, there's just mounds of research and science to show that no kid will be standing in the dark. And that's what Dr. Lutzy's telling you. And he's like a saint. He has accomplished so much this year. You need to at least take his word for things like that. And you know,
Tom, I want to remind you that not all kids are on a bus. Some kids do walk to school.
Little
kids.
Well, no parent is going to walk to school in the dark with his kid when they have the option to drive them or put them on the bus in daylight. Why in the world would they do that? I just want to comment on one thing that Mike said, and it's really disrespectful to the people that testified, Mike. For you to say that the elementary school kids, there's a 100% loss under this proposal. Were you not listening tonight? I mean, there were parent after parent after parent. It includes Rich as a grandparent. Many of them said, no, this is not a problem. I do not see a harm. I do not see it as a loss. Matter of fact, they said they saw it as an advantage. So this whole idea that this is dangerous to small children it's a fallacy.
Well, hold on a second. Be very careful when you say I'm being disrespectful, because you got it wrong. What I was saying was those who testified who are opposed to this plan, it's 100% loss. So don't play that game of trying to shade what I was saying or what they were saying. It's wrong. It's disrespectful what you just said, Tom. Okay, I don't do it to you. Don't do it to me. It's all those who've popped up, written emails, testified tonight who said they don't want this plan, they don't want to change this plan. It's 100% loss. That's what I said. Okay.
I apologize if I misunderstood. I wrote down 100% loss on one side, but I take your explanation.
But you know, you raise a great point in a positive way. There are plenty of parents who have testified and sent us emails about who have elementary school kids that say they're fine with it. Again, that's showing that there's got to be some accommodation here. And I get it. Dr. Lutzy's put forward the plan. He said he had 14 different scenarios and brought in consultants, and I get all that. But, you know, and I don't want to repeat myself. I think that the concerns raised by those who are against this plan, okay, they have all valid considerations. And what I'm hearing from all those who will be supporting the budget without any modification are all saying, you got to figure it out. Okay, just figure it out. And I think that is, oh, and by the way, you got to figure it out. And we're using your taxpayer dollars, so you have to figure it out. And I think that without having greater buy-in from the community on this plan, let's just talk about this plan. There's clearly not community buy-in on it. So, and we're using people's money to be hurt by this plan. That's the problem that I have. Again, I'm not saying not change the short term. I'm not saying that. So, but where as a body, as an elected body, are saying, we hear what the troubles will be to you, but you gotta figure it out. And by the way, we're using your tax money to make you figure it out. I mean, we are. There's no getting around that. And if we're okay, is that as an elected body to say that's okay because the doctor said this is the best plan, then that's fine. Then that's what your position is. But we can't hide behind the fact that that doctor said this is it. he's awesome, which he is. And therefore, we're going to absolve ourselves and let the cards fall where they may. We're sending the message to the working moms, the working dads who come to us begging for some kind of relief here. And we're saying, sorry, we're not going to help. And that's the end of it. That's the message we're saying. And if you're okay with that, then that's your prerogative. I am not okay with that. I would think that there'd be a better way in a town like this that we wouldn't be doing something like that. But I guess it sounds like that's the way it's going.
John, can I say something? Or Maria was first. I don't want to jump. Go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of processing all the speakers today, and I'm thinking about the school system is a system, but it's part of a bigger system, and it seems like there's certain components of this whole entire system that haven't been fully kind of thought out. It seems like elementary school parents, people with young kids, are very busy. They're the parents who can barely make it through the day. When the majority of your kids are little, you're just really busy. So I think a lot of these families are just finding out really what this will mean for when this gets implemented. I didn't realize there were before school religious programs and sports, and it seems there might be gaps in time between when those activities take place and when school starts. There's after school programs like St. A's, that's like 800 kids. And that's a system that has to adapt to this new change. And Tuesday we spoke about this, and it seems that, this may happen in January, it may happen in February. So it's kind of a big maybe. So I'm wondering, do we fund big maybes? Do we fund things that are not fully articulated? And I'm 100% supportive of all the families getting what, I know the high school students, I've had to drag 4 kids out of bed. I understand how, what the benefit will be when they can sleep later. But I know how hard it is in the elementary level. So, there's still a lot of things that have to work out in this big maybe. So, is there a possibility of making this a special appropriation when it's all fully articulated? Just a thought. But, I mean, I'm still processing this all. I understand the Board of Ed makes a decision to do with the money whatever they see fit. So, I mean, I tend to not want to cut anything out. I assume they made the decision, with a clear head. But then I'm part of me is thinking maybe the Board of Ed didn't have all the research either when they made the decision. So, that's where I am. I'm still weighing everything out.
John, and I want to circle back
John, can I speak?
Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, no problem. First, I want to thank Rich and Tom. I've had a lot of conversations learning about self-insured plans and reserves, and probably more than I've ever wanted to. So I want to thank them for helping me. And John, I got to thank you too for our dialogues as well. This is a tough process this year. I thought was going to be easier, but clearly not. And having listened to Tom and I know he's deals with the Board of Ed issue and the stuff that John talked about early on, and having assurance there gives me a lot of comfort. And around the start time issue, I said this last year, it's not the town council's lane, right? And I'll repeat myself again. Elections have consequences, and I'm with Sven. If you don't like what the Board of Ed is doing, there are elections for that, and just like there are for the town council. So I encourage everyone to participate more if they don't know who they're voting for and what they stand for. Every single person on the Board of Ed that was elected 2 years ago voted in support of this plan. So I don't think it's in my lane to second guess them. So John, if what Tom said is true, then I would have to support the budget as is. That's all I'll say.
John, and Mark, I apologize, I interrupted you before. John, I just want to circle back on something again about, engagement. After last year's budget, obviously, there were several people who were unhappy with that vote. And I spoke to some who were very strong advocates of the later start time. And something I had said to them was, look, and I mentioned that whole Westport and how they did it. I said, why can't we have that? I'm like, let's talk about that. Let's have that discussion. I said, I'd be there for it. And I won't name who I was talking to when about that conversation, but they're in the chat room and they're listening. And I respect that person immensely. And this isn't anything about that person, but I would 100% have gotten involved in that conversation if any advocate for the later start time had reached out to me. And it didn't happen. So again, I would love to have had that. I honestly just think it's wrong to be in this position now. And I respect what Mark just said about, that he believes his role is to not, go into that lane. And I respect that. But I don't even think we should even be in this position where we're having this discussion where, again, it's before us to have to even consider this issue, because it should be happening elsewhere. And it shouldn't have risen to the level that it has again. And that's why the way I look at it, if this implementation isn't supposed to happen anyway till sometime in the winter, what is the problem with pumping the brakes right now, not approving that proportion of the money in the budget, and have the engagement that I've been talking about, and have an impact discussion? Because clearly the doctor said that there has to be discussions with all the daycare people in town. There has to be something done with St. A's. I mean, hundreds of kids and there was no engagement. I mean, come on. So why not pump the brakes, hold off, have that engagement, not even wait for another board of ed election. If it's that pressing of an issue, get back into a room and try to work it out. And if you need the money, you come back. I don't want to, I know it's starting to fall on deaf ears, but I just can't send the message that this is sending to all of these working families. I can't send that message.
I'm going to have to rely, as some of you have figured out, my laptop died because I didn't bring my cord home. So I'm working off the iPhone. So I'm going to rely on Sven to direct the conversation now. So if Sven, is there any other town council member who wants to speak? And at this point, I think we should invite Katrina or Brendan or Dr. Lutzy to speak if they want to address anything they've heard tonight. If there's been any misrepresentations, we should clear them up now.
John, Robin wants to
go
speak.
Christina.
Robin was raising her hand.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna turn it over to Sven now.
Christina, can you go
Can I go where?
and speak? You
No,
still got your
sorry. I don't need to.
Robin.
Right. So I'm actually going to vote for the budget as it is. I think Dr. Lutzy and the New Canaan school system did an absolutely amazing job. I have my sister in Massachusetts is so jealous of what we've had. I honestly don't know how I feel about this healthier start time, but I don't think, I'm going to stay in my lane. And also, we could, cut the budget and they could still find a way to put it in. So even if we were to cut by, what is it now, 438,000, it could, they could still find a way. So I think it's, someone said tonight, this is not a, where is it? In my opinion, not a decision that the town council should be making. And I think that's absolutely right. But I think what they brought forth is a good budget. The Board of Finance saw that. And now that they're okay with the special appropriation and that the Board of Finance said that they would, make that happen quickly. And I think the town council would as well. I have to vote for this budget. And
Thanks,
I agree with
Steve.
that. What you were saying, by the way, is, before this is implemented, there are elections in November, and get out and vote, for people, because, the Board of Education does represent the town. So, get out there in November.
Steve, you're up.
Thanks, Ben. So there are a lot of moving parts on this one. And one of the things that I wanted to add to the discussion was I actually reached out to Roy Walder this week. And I always look at Roy as like the mad scientist of moving people around. And he's the guy who designs all the bus routes and gets all those buses into the right places at the right time. And I peppered him with question after question after question. What about this? What about that? What if we did this? What if we did that? I hit him with 50 different angles of 50 different questions. And he really did answer every single question I had perfectly eloquently in exactly the way he's done it now since 2017. So the one thing that he said, though, that was to me a very important piece of this is if we do implement that sort of mid-year start time, one of the reasons why it has to be done is they need to order a couple of buses. These propane buses take apparently 8 months. He said he has to get an order in fairly quickly in order to get the buses to the school in time to even consider doing this. So that was an important piece of this. So delaying this or doing a special appropriation isn't going to work. I mean, if we're going to want to do this, we've got to do it and get these buses going and start to implement the plan in place. So last year, I voted as a percentage cut because I've always looked at the Board of Ed as doing a great job. And I've supported their budget since I was elected. You look back and the vote after vote after vote, year after year after year. Last year was one of the biggest cuts we had. And the reason for that was COVID. There was the backstop and what we were doing, even during the week that we voted on this, it was an amazingly dark time. And I shared with the council last year the notes that I took during that week, and I'll share them again so that I can bring you back in time. I looked at it as though it was a budget cut. I didn't look at it as though I was cutting start times. I honestly looked at it that way. And I stand by that. And I stand by the notes that I made that day. I believe also that we should stay in our lane. I really believe that we approve a budget that is carefully looked at. And this year in particular, I believe we are in good, healthy standing. I believe we can support this budget, both on the town side and on the school side. And I plan to stay in my lane as well and vote the budget in. We've all talked about this for a tremendously long period of time. We've heard testimony on both sides, but I really do believe the Board of Ed has researched this. As Brian showed the other night, if you look at that website and you look at all of the dates that they've gone through since 2017, how many times they've had meetings and research and all the backstop that they've got on this issue. I don't know. I mean, at some point we've got to try it. And the other night he said, and I quote, "This doesn't mean that we are closed to future discussions." He's already saying maybe we can get it 5 minutes sooner, 10 minutes sooner. What he said doesn't mean we are closed to future discussions. And that's an important quote from him because I believe that. I believe that they're going to study this and try to improve it as they improve everything they do. We've got the best of the best. So, I don't want to talk too long, but I think Brian and his team, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I trust what they're going to do, and I'm going to vote for the budget in. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. We've got plenty of time to discuss this. We can go late tonight, so we're having a good discussion. Liz, do you want to throw in?
Sure, although Tom has his hand up, I'm happy to speak now, or I could.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of the things that I am thinking have been said, but I'll reiterate them just so people are clear where I stand. In the past, I have voted to cut the budget for one reason or another. Like Steve said, last year was COVID. We didn't know what that was going to do. It seemed like not a good time to do something, to spend money that when we just didn't know what was going to happen. This year, I was very encouraged Tuesday night listening to Dr. Lutzy saying some of the things he said in terms of, look, we have been looking at this for several years. I know this isn't the perfect plan. We're going to tinker around the edges. We're going to do what we can do, and we're going to try and make it better. And I think that's important. And I think that no matter what happens, for the parents who are not happy about this, and I totally can understand that it's going to upend, no matter what we do, it's going to upend somebody's life. It's if we change it or we don't, it's going to make a difference. But if it does go through and the start times are going to change, that doesn't mean, as a parent of an elementary school kid, that you can't continue to put pressure on the Board of Ed and on Dr. Lutzy. I mean, as several of my colleagues have pointed out, there are elections. That's certainly one way to do it. And you can continue to, go to Board of Ed meetings and, write letters and emails to those individuals to continue to put the pressure on, saying, what are you doing? How are you making this better? Are we going to get to 8 o'clock? And as Rich pointed out, and as John mentioned, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I mean, this keeps coming up. We've got to start somewhere. I have to trust that I am not an education expert by any stretch. My kids are grown. I've gone down that road, but I do not feel qualified to tell the Board of Ed what to do. So, I have to believe that if the Board of Ed has said that they have studied this and that this is the best they can do. And again, Dr. Lutzy went through Tuesday night. Here are all the problems, with the physics, and Rich mentioned that as well. There are just some things, we may not like them, but look, all of our, our junior high, our middle school and Saks and the high school are all at one end of town. I live almost in Vista. I, like Sven, went through the New Canaan public school system. I spent a lot of time on a bus. And when I was in high school, we started school at, 7:30 and 8 o'clock maybe. And, I was a morning person, so that worked for me. But my own children, I could never get out of bed it was a struggle. So I relate to that. But it's a lot of driving, it's a distance. And Sven raised a good point the other night. Is there more we could do, whether it's the road, whether is there something we can do to the Saks parking that involves the buses so that we could have one Saks bus run instead of two? Are there physical changes that could be made that haven't been considered? But at the end of the day, I have to say, I don't think the Board of Ed and Dr. Lutzy are trying to harm anybody. I don't think they're purposely sacrificing one group for another. I think they're making the choice that they made, knowing that not everybody's going to be happy. And how do we start? We have to start somewhere. How do we start there and then try to make it better and keep making it better? And that's where our citizens can keep putting the pressure on to say, keep working on it. Just because it went this way, we're not giving up. We still want to see improvement. So I will be supporting the budget.
Thanks, Liz. Hey, Tom, I'm going to go to Penny and then we'll start around the horn again. Go ahead, Penny.
Okay, it's difficult to, what I'd like to say is just second what Liz has been saying, because as I have my list of points I was going to make, I was checking it all that she articulated them. I'm going to be voting in support of the budget. I have great confidence in the judgment of the administration, and I understand there are problems, and I just have to have great faith that they will continue to evaluate what is being done, what the problems that are that are popping up that you didn't know about, or the ones that you do know about and are trying to come up with some solutions. We just don't make a decision and say, heck, this is it. We're not going to, continue to look at it. And as I said, I just have great faith that they'll continue to study the issue. We don't know what's going to happen between now and next January with even COVID. So there are other things that could be presented in the picture that are going to be even more monumental decisions. And we put off the school start time. We don't know that, but we've got to enable the administration to move forward with the planning of it. And as I said, I have great confidence they'll continue to be thinking clearly and intelligently.
Thanks, Penny. Tom, you're up.
Yeah, real quick, Sven, I've been thinking as we've been talking about your concept of widening the road, and I see no reason why we wouldn't do that, even if we weren't talking about start times. I mean, we have huge traffic problems at that intersection. If there's an answer, the town ought to commit to working on that. I love that. All I want to say is that I wouldn't want to send a message to the Board of Ed that they can't start planning for implementation until we're done with that study. And until Roy Walder has a chance to redo the entire bus, protocol, and that after we do all of that, they would start working on implementation, i.e. the daycare and the other issues that we've discussed. So I think we have to run those on parallel tracks. But if we can get that road widened and if it works, I'd love to. But I think that could be a pretty involved discussion. And it isn't just the cost of asphalt. It has to do with what land we're going to use. And
It's a state road.
It's a state road.
Right.
And we love the state.
That's all I have.
Town council, do you guys want to go around, or I'm going to invite Brian to speak and then Katrina to speak, and then we can go around the horn again if you want.
Can
Okay, Brian.
Just one question, because then Brian maybe could address it. What might be the likelihood of getting to a time that would meet the needs of, the parents of elementary school students? Like, how close are we getting? That's it.
Sure.
Brian, you're up.
Thank you. And thank you, Sven and John, for giving me a minute to speak here. I'll be quick. Just to your question directly, Maria, the one tier sets the other, right? There's a cascading effect as you do all of this. So as I mentioned Tuesday night, our goal is to try to get as close to 8 o'clock as we can. We recognize that everyone that 15 minutes would make a world of difference for many, many people. We could not get to 8 o'clock and have the high school start at 8:30. Just 30 minutes isn't enough time. But it does have to do, like I said the other night, also about bus times versus start times. So we can tighten a window here and maybe make a shift there. I think we can move probably to a 7:50 start. I don't, again, this is hypothetical. We've got to build this out. But also, which would lead to a 7:45 drop off, which would build actually 10 minutes into the system, which could move the earliest pickup out, 8 minutes to 10 minutes, however it all works. I mean, this is how, again, Steve hit the nail on the head. Roy builds it. As we've done all this, we ran up through 2 other logistics experts to check it all. There's been a lot of work on this. But just this as a hypothetical, now if that were to come together, you're talking about 7:16 as the earliest pickup somewhere near Liz's house, right? And then you're building in from there. You're moving everything out, the 10 minutes. Seems to be a big difference as I'm hearing people talk about things. In conversations with principals, over at South, they're lining up well before the time we're talking about. There are people already doing drop-offs there. The walkers, nobody's walking more than 15 minutes, as they're getting in. So it's not that we've got kids walking for an hour to get to school. They wouldn't be walking in the dark. So, but all of those things are things that we would look at. We absolutely have as a core ethic of our district continuous improvement in all aspects of what we do. We would continue to look at this. As I mentioned before, I have to start from a base that I know we can do, and then we optimize from there. That's just how this has to work. And as far as the timing goes, what Steve said from Roy is absolutely right. We began conversations with a lot of folks last year. We had to hit pause on all of those, as you know. When we have commitment and we move forward, then we can really engage and we can commit with, because we are asking other external programs to adapt and to change, and to, in some ways, we're asking them, providing them with opportunities to scale up, bring on more staff, run more programs, bring in more kids and do more things. And they can't commit to any of that without us being able to commit confidently to making the change. So this is an important timing for us, which will allow us to go confidently to external partners and say, we're going to do this. let's talk about what how we can work together. We can't do that without a commitment.
So if you do 750 this year, or, the coming year, would you continue to work towards, like, could it move to the time, that the parents would be happier with in your continuous improvement? Would that be the goal?
Yeah. Well, sure, certainly anything can. The only challenge is, of course, that it will continue to impact the other tiers, right? So one tier impacts the next. So as you push one later, it pushes the second later, then third later, which means the dismissal at the end of the day gets later as well. So it's a complex system. But yes, we would absolutely look at if enrollment were to drop, if roads were to widen and speed limits increase. There are lots of variables that certainly can come into play that we would always look at, and recognize that it's, again, nobody would be happier than me to have a system that everybody loves, right? So if we can continue making this better and better for people, that's always our commitment in everything that we do. Yeah.
Trina, did you want to speak?
Sure. Thank you, Sven. I was just having a hard time getting off mute. Thank you. And thank you, Brian. And I just want to thank first all the parents who spoke tonight and all the community members. We've heard from many of you over the past many years, and we just appreciate that everyone's continued to be engaged and to share their perspective. It's important, and it's weighed on us as we've moved through this process over the last many years. And as Brian just said, it is a complex system, and it's been a complex decision-making process where we've had to account for a lot of, sort of, I would say, considerations and barriers and things that, we have to implement as we think about moving forward. And I think as a board, as we move forward beyond the budget season, we have a lot of things to continue to work on and think about. And we're committed to doing that. I think the primary goal is to optimize what's in place. We have a framework and a solution that's been brought forward. And now we, take that to the next step, and we communicate around it and continue to engage community members and, clarify some of the facts and the research, and really just with an eye towards optimizing it to the, extent that we can. So, and we, I think Dr. Letzi mentioned some ways that we possibly could do that, and we'll continue to be open to other ideas and thoughts on how to do that. So I would just like to reiterate, our commitment and support of what we brought forward, and further commitment to say, this is not the end. This is just the beginning. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Katrina. Town council members? Anybody we haven't heard from that you would like to hear from? There are other BOE folks who are out there in the windows. Are we done with our discussion? I see a couple of thumbs ups. All right, so everybody who is ready to close out the discussion and move on to salaries, raise your hand. Yeah, it looks like we're done. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I think Penny is up next. She's going to lead us in the discussion of the salaries. Go ahead, Penny.
Okay, I had forwarded everybody PowerPoint presentation from Cheryl Jones, and I don't have the ability to put it on my screen. So can I just read it off to you? Because it's 3 sections. And this is the salaries for the first selectman, and actually the selectman, and then the town clerk and the treasurer. So why don't I start with the first selectman? The first selectman's salary is currently $147,000. The Board of Finance did not discuss it 2 years ago. And they discussed it at their budget hearings, and are proposing that salary
Wagner just left.
Move to $155,000.
Anybody else left?
Okay, we're getting feedback from
Down to 72.
Dan.
John, you need to mute that.
John. Okay, so their thinking is that in order for us to remain a really AAA rated community, and it's not just from the financial rating of it, but from the reputation and delivery of services for our community, that they feel that the salary for our first selectman should really be such that it would attract and compensate a top-notch professional and be reflective of the scope of responsibilities and workload that is expected of a high level performance of our individual. So is there any discussion about that recommendation?
Like
Am
it.
I?
I like it.
Okay. Are we voting on this evening? Or this is then it goes into the budget as the Board of Finance entered it?
We would
Right?
like you to vote tonight.
And
Okay.
and it's currently in the budget the way you were talking.
Correctly, correct.
It is, absolutely. So then I will make the motion that the first selectman's salary is 155,000 for each of the 2-year term.
I'll second it.
Sven, I think you have to call for the vote.
Okay. Further discussion? None appearing, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
That's everybody.
That's everybody. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Also in the Board of Finance's budget to us is the salary for the 2 selectmen. And that amount is 8,021. There were no changes in that from what exists now. So I will make the motion that salary is, as in the Board of Finance budget, is what I'm recommending.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Rich? Further discussion?
I don't believe that it's the Board of Finance who sets the salaries, it's the town council. So being that it's a recommendation by the town council, my question is, this salary has not been reviewed or upgraded since at least 25 years. And I think that just like everything gets a COLA increase, this has not received it. And I think it's off by a lot.
Would you like to propose a number?
You actually have a motion on the table which needs to be
Okay.
voted on.
Voted down or up, yeah.
Further
Nice.
discussion?
If I may, Christina, are you talking about the selectmen salary that haven't been reviewed? They were in 2017. They were set and reviewed by the town council.
Set and reviewed, and it was not.
And they were voted on. I looked at the minutes today.
But there has been no increase in at least 25 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were referring to if they were reviewed. Okay.
One of the reasons why we always discuss this is that it's the first selectman is the one who makes all the major decisions. The selectmen are in those positions, but they don't put the amount of time in that the first selectman does. And the $8,000 is to recognize that they're, an elected position underneath there, but I don't think there's any way to set a salary that, it's always been a token from the beginning of time, just to sort of give them the nod. So I don't see changing that now makes any sense, because if you set it higher than that, if you set it at $10,000, it's the same thing as $8,000. So I don't see, unless you completely turn it around where you're paying them $50,000. It's really just it's a token anyway. That's my opinion. That's what we've discussed over the years.
It's a very small token.
Yes, it is.
Christine, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, Steve Carl, but didn't we debate, there was a motion, I think, about 7 years ago to eliminate it entirely. And
That is correct.
And we said, no, this is it's an important, but it's a token, and we set it at $8,000. So we actually have spent a lot of time thinking about this and debating this, just not in the last 5 years.
Okay, but I think it's a healthy discussion, and just to hear that the Board of Finance hasn't changed it, to me, it's our responsibility to debate it.
You're correct.
You're right.
Right.
So
Did
we
you
have
have a
a
number? Did you have a
so we-
number in mind, Christina? I mean, what do you think?
I don't know. If at all possible, I would say round it up to 10.
Oh,
It's still
I'd
a
like to-
small token, but
I'd like to suggest that that the salary remains at 8,021 for this election cycle, and that the town council study the issue with enough time to really have, to dig deeply into it. Because there are various communities handle this issue, these positions differently. Wilton has 5 selectmen and none of them are compensated. So I think it warrants some study if we feel that it, would benefit from a little bit more time and in-depth analysis.
my feeling is that it'd still be an arbitrary choice, but
Yeah.
I think we need to call the question and move forward with the vote. If you vote no, then we can bring it around and open it up to another motion. So the motion on the table is to approve the $8,000 for the 2 selectmen. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
And isn't it
It's
8,000?
8,021.
8,021.
And Penny made the motion with Rich seconding, correct?
Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It passes.
I need to know who was against, though. I'm sorry.
Oh, Sven, Mark. And I don't know, is Liz's hand up or is she getting up? I think Liz's hand is up.
In support, voting yes.
Voting no.
No, okay.
No, I voted yes. I just want to.
Oh, okay.
I just want to be clear.
I voted yes also.
So who voted no?
Sven and Christina.
Okay.
Okay. Next. Penny.
Okay, yes, moving on to the town clerk's position. As I said in my narrative to you, I had consulted with Christina, and she raised the question at our last meeting based on her observation of the workload in the town clerk's office during the presidential election cycle. I went to the president of the Connecticut Town Clerks Association and had quite a long, detailed discussion with her. She indicated that her understanding of what transpired in all the town clerks across the state is that they handled the extra workload during this presidential cycle when, we had all the absentee ballots requested and returned and ballots sent out and returned and so forth. That all the departments handled it with increased staff. Some of them had used volunteers, but found that to be less than ideal because there's not the dependability of showing up to do work as a volunteer, whereas if you are a paid staff, it was. She's understanding that the 2 bills that are before the legislature right now, if they pass, it is definitely going to have impact on the town clerk's office because it's not necessarily assumed that the a lot of the work's gonna coming out of Hartford, and so it'll all be, generated in the various municipalities. But that's not going to happen, a vote until later the session is out of our budget cycle. And we don't have to deal with it until 2022 anyway. And she also indicated that from an association standpoint, she has no knowledge of any of the town clerks who have received salary increases in these upcoming budgets, that they received normal COLAs. And our own department, town clerk, hired 12 part-time staff to the tune of 39,780. So our town clerk was able to handle that extra workload with the normal request for additional staffing, which she was granted. So my recommendation is that position receive a COLA increase. The salary currently is 109,188, and the COLA will be determined under the union negotiations.
And Penny has made the motion. And a second.
Second.
Who?
Second.
Mark?
Mark.
You guys gotta speak up.
Yeah. Discussion? Go ahead, Maria.
So what is the COLA amount, and is it either COLA or something else, or?
No, it's COLA, and that is to be determined in the union negotiations.
And is that typical? Is that what happens?
It's typical. It's what's been happening. Right. That's what happens with all the department heads.
Penny,
Further?
Penny, it's more
Right.
accurate to say that the Board of Selectmen adjust the managers who are not subject to union contracts in accordance with the town hall employee union amount.
Right.
Usually the same
Okay.
amount, but not always the same amount.
Okay.
Further discussion? Christina?
I understand Penny's research, but I don't think that you can evaluate a position just on one person's opinion out of Windsor, I believe that she's from. When I look at the statistics, which have not been presented as to what other town clerks earn.
That's not true.
What did I miss?
We just got it. We did get it.
This afternoon.
You had it on last Tuesday, and then it was again sent to you last night.
Okay, I don't have that. Maybe it didn't print out. But anyway, Westport salary is 114,984. And I'm just going by the DIRG. Greenwich is 107. And I don't know the specifics as to how many other people are under the town clerk to make their job easier or not. For example, Norwalk has a town clerk and a city clerk, so the salary is lower, but it's split in two. I think that the salary should be reviewed and it should be upped. And I don't think that we should be below Westport, but it may be too much of a jump. And I would suggest a higher number.
Okay, the salary was reviewed, I believe, 4 years ago. And as I commented in the narrative, you've got to be very careful when you are comparing salaries in different towns, because in Westport's case, I remember doing this research. She has been in her position for a number of years, and therefore she is at the top of her pay categorization. And Greenwich is, I believe, is a larger department than ours is. the
Westport,
responsibilities are different. So it was, the position was thoroughly studied at least 4 years ago.
well, Westport's town clerk has been at her position 22 years, and Claudia has been there 23 years. But it's not about the person; it's about the position and the responsibilities.
I understand, right? But what I'm saying is that the salary then ends up having been subject to COLAs during that cycle, which is how that gets up to an amount that is calculated.
One thing, Penny, about, the volunteers that you mentioned, the 8 to 12 part-time staff that we had at Town Hall, managing those people has to happen too, though, right? So it's one thing to get the help, but you also have to manage people. And anybody that's ever had new people come in, and it starts with fresh people that have no idea what they're doing. So there is a little more responsibility there, just to be clear, I think anyway. I mean, if you have 8 new people coming into your office, it's up to you, because we're judging that town clerk as far as the results, and so is the state. So I understand the comparison of bringing extra help and extra people and paying for it, but someone's actually got to tell those people what to do. Now, I have no idea the organizational chart over there, but I imagine that our town clerk has to be at the top of it somehow, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
To Steve's point, thinking about, okay, so whatever happened this past year in 2020, we can say might be some sort of anomaly, but depending on what happens in the future of voting in Connecticut, and some of us are more aware than others about what could be happening in terms of no excuse absentee voting and early voting and all that kind of stuff. If those things do happen, and we won't know for a bit if they're going to happen, but if those things do happen, then that would be a logical time, I think, to review the town clerk's job then, because it will change. If those things happen, I think it will change. So I would definitely say at that time it would be a logical point to look at it again. And in the meantime, I support the COLA.
I think.
Any
you're
further
right on.
dis-
That's right on.
Go ahead, Tom.
I just say that's right. I agree 100% with Liz.
Further discussion? We'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor, raise your right hands, please. That's unanimous, I believe. Any opposed that
No,
I
it's
missed?
not.
No. Who was it? You, Christina, are you a yes or no?
No.
So
No. Okay.
anybody else a no, or is Christina a no? Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, then the town clerk's position.
No, town treasurer.
Treasurer.
I mean, town treasurer, pardon me. I was reading what was on my sheet here. The scope of responsibilities have not changed for that position. Interfaces with the director of finance. He has statutory requirements which have not changed. And so I recommend that the position
We just lost her.
Yeah, we lost her.
Penny, we lost your audio. No, we can't hear you, but you're
Can't
not
hear.
muted. Something went wrong. Okay, someone's.
Are you
oh, we can
back?
hear you now.
Am I back on?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, okay. Okay, what I indicated is that the responsibilities of the position have not changed. There's still the interface with the director of finance. The statutory requirements from the state have not changed. And so I recommend that that position receive a COLA increase. The current position is 20,940.66.
Motion, a second. Mark, I saw.
I'll second
Discussion,
that.
Steve?
I was seconding. I'm
Okay.
fine.
And
Any
Penny, this
discussion?
position was reevaluated very recently, right? So that was
Yes.
a big adjustment a couple years ago.
Yes, it was.
Very good.
Just a comment as far as our current treasurer, take a minute just to acknowledge that a small increase like this based on what he's been able to do in terms of, bringing in extra money for the town. I really think he's done a good job since he's been on board. So well done to Mr. Burns.
I'd like to just add to the information. His salary was reviewed, or the treasurer's salary was reviewed 4 years ago. So it's not that recent. And when I look at the comparison of salaries in the list that was provided by Penny, Bethel, Brookfield, Monroe, Sherman, Trumbull are now within the lower Fairfield area where you can compare salaries and cost of living. So when I look at Darien, New Canaan, Reading, Richfield, I see that we are one of the lowest, not the lowest. And I question why we need to be at that number given the amount of work that this particular person filling the position has done in a very positive way. And I think we should review it. It took a lot to get it from 1,500 to 20,000, but 20,000 was a low number at that point.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, we were discussing numbers up to 30.
yeah. So I think we should reconsider this salary.
Okay, what I'd like to remind everyone is when we did the analysis, Kathleen Corbett did a very extensive analysis of this position, that there are various responsibilities aside from the statutory responsibilities of how the treasurers interface with the finance directors in the various municipalities. Some of the treasurers are indeed the director of finance. Some treasurers merely carry out their statutory requirements and have no additional responsibilities in the municipality. So unless you're going to go back and do a thorough analysis of and a comparison of the responsibilities, both statutorily and with the municipality, it's apples and oranges when you look at that chart.
But I would say, to go along with what Steve said, I think there's been a lot of really smart moves and like actual, 20,000 is almost a token, to go back to the token discussion, but the decisions that are being made seem to be worth a whole lot more. So it does seem very low.
And he just doesn't interface with the CFO of the town. He also interfaces with the Board of Education. And he has the responsibility of signing the checks, and he has the responsibility of overlooking them. He came up with the idea of the credit card for the town. He has been bidding out different contracts. I think Tucker has been involved in some of those conversations and meetings. I mean, this is somebody who has pioneered a whole new level of responsibility for a position that really had no responsibility.
But are we saying that this is the new job description? I mean, are we guaranteeing that the next, I hope he's our treasurer indefinitely, but are we talking about the person or the job description?
No, the job description. I know for a fact that he went to other town treasurers and other CFOs to find out exactly what the job responsibilities were. And I think that Lunda can speak to it in terms of the amount of work, but to ignore it and say that all his work doesn't mean anything, I think it's unfortunate.
But are we saying that every town treasurer is going to have this exact set of responsibilities and are going to be expected to do all those things?
No, I think
No, it's all over the map.
Yeah,
It's all over the map.
yeah, but so are the salaries, and we are the
Exactly.
lowest, next to the lowest.
Penny, could you clarify when Kathleen Corbett did the analysis, didn't she assume the job responsibilities that Andrew currently basically has? It wasn't
Yes.
the old model, it's the new model that she took.
It was the new model, yes, which is why the compensation was determined as it was. It was, indicative of not how the town treasurer's position had been exercised, with the former treasurer, but with the new, and they were spelled out in the job description. So that's
think
what
he's-
was determined 4 years ago.
I think he's due a merit increase. He's done a hell of a job.
What's the number?
3-0.
Oh my goodness.
4?
No, come on, give me a break.
Can we clarify,
Do we have-
Penny, can you clarify that COLA increase? Is that done annually? So the salary would be,
Yes,
so
it's,
each year it'll have the COLA. Okay.
that's true.
So the current salary is 20,009, right?
Yes.
So 20,009, and the average COLA that we've done recently is what, 2.5?
2.25.
2.25. So that's $470. So, again, whenever we do this, I always look at this and you say, okay, 470, divide that by 12, and you're giving a $39 raise monthly before tax, just to put it in perspective.
Yeah.
In New Canaan, Connecticut. I'm just saying. I mean, it's just, that's, to me, that's always the way I've looked at this. Now, I'm not advocating for a $30,000 job description here, but I think, a small token is, I think, at least worth considering. I'm not going up to 30. So I would propose maybe
25 in COLA.
25 in COLA. I like it.
I like
Me
it.
too.
I can get behind that.
Okay, so we have the motion that's on the floor.
Right.
So we
We have to
need to
reject
vote
that.
on that one. So
Wait, the motion was to
the
20,000?
motion was keep it where it is and just the COLA.
Okay.
All those in favor? 1, 2, 3.
Wait, I need to know who
Four.
it is though, not just how many. So-
Rich, Penny, Mike, and Liz.
Okay. Or for.
And everyone else,
Yeah, it was, yeah.
all opposed?
Opposed? Sven,
Sven,
Maria,
Tom, Mark, Christina. Yeah.
wait, Tom, Steve. and
Robin.
Mark.
I think we got it. We
Yep,
got it
okay.
right, Pepper.
Where's John Engel? On the
He's right there.
on the retain
No.
at
No,
20?
reject. He's against
Oh,
the motion,
Okay, got it.
right?
I oppose 20. I'm waiting for you to revote at 25.
Okay, we need a motion.
I motion 25.
Plus
And COLA.
COLA. We have a
Second.
motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second is Christina. Further discussion?
Can I ask a question here?
Sure.
When this went around the horn 4 years ago, the Board of Finance wouldn't let us take his salary up. And I don't remember why that was. And in fact, I believe got delayed. It became a real political issue across somebody that was here could tell that story. But I'd like to understand whether we have to go back to the Board of Finance with this or something.
No.
Yeah, maybe there's the charter spells out the first selectman, the selectman, and the town clerk, but is the treasurer in that group as well?
Yes, it is. And we said it, town council sets it. It has nothing.
Yes, your
to do
town
with-
council rules that you adopted last year state that you all set those.
Review all four. Okay.
Statute stated.
And we have the ability to take them up, right? That's
Yes.
the only thing we have the ability to take up in the town.
Yes,
Just so we're sure, so we're not screwing something up here.
correct.
What, Rich, you're referring to something that happened. I don't remember that back and forth about the treasurer's salary. I don't remember
Yeah.
that.
That was
Yeah.
when Malassi was selected.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Board
Oh,
of
I do.
Finance did not want to hear anything.
Okay,
Okay.
let's not revisit it then.
No, I'm not trying to revisit. I'm just trying to make sure, we got to have a vote on Tuesday. We got to have the right numbers. So let's got to put the right numbers in.
Yeah.
And the
we
number
were
that's in
doing
there right
Wednesday.
now is what Penny just suggested. Okay, and so if we're going to change the number, that's fine. We just got to make sure we change it now and they don't have to vote on it in the Board of Finance or something before we.
Okay, so
put it
on
in.
the floor, we have 25 plus COLA.
Any further discussion? None appearing, will proceed to a vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
And leave your hands up so I can see, please. Mike, Steve, Sven, Robin, Maria, Christina, Mark, Tom, John Engel. Did I get you all who have your hands up?
Yeah.
Okay, against?
All those respectfully opposed?
Penny, Rich, and Liz.
Any abstains? No, we're all set.
Okay.
Is that
I
it,
just want
folks?
I know that I was supposed to have my discussion before we voted, but I want to echo what Christina said, and I want to actually get a little bit more specific. The reason I think the job description did change, and it's not because this individual is doing a good job. I do think that financial management has gotten more complex, and I think it's gotten more complex by probably 20% in the last few years. I think that the fact that we are, if for no other reason than we are going out into the bond market at like every year and refinancing our bonds, and we are reevaluating our cash position, and are we making enough money on our cash position, and are we making enough money on our credit card? All of these things are really way more than we bargained for even a few years ago. So I don't think it's because he's particularly, it's not about the individual. I think the job just got a whole lot more complicated. So I'm with Christina. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you,
Okay, so
Christina.
then I think going forward, we need to really understand, since we have a very different skill set in our finance director, as to really who is involved in all of those, negotiations and so forth. So I think, going forward, that's a sensible thing for us to do before we vote on this in 2 years. Because we actually do have a very different profile of skills in our finance director.
I think that moving forward in the future, there shouldn't be just one person looking at the salaries and making the recommendations. I think it should be a concerted group of people, so we can really get into it and analyze it, and perhaps talk to other people in town hall that would have interreactions, so we can evaluate the job descriptions. But thank you, Penny.
It does always, it sneaks up on us because it's at the worst time of the year. I mean, we're already, drowning in the budget, and then all of a sudden this gets thrown in there on top of it. So the timing is pretty bad. But I see our current first selectman on the call here, and I need to mention the fact that one of the reasons why that salary was so low is he never wanted an increase. So that was a pretty selfless thing to do. So thank you for the last few years, Kevin. That's I know it's the position, but you said no a couple times. So New Canaan thanks you for that. It won't buy us a new bus, but
I'll make note to bring this all to you 6 months prior to budget season, to start this discussion.
That's in 2 years.
In 2 years, because it's funny, when Tom and I were transferring over, he said that this always comes up and it's always causes some problems. So we'll just have to start the discussion earlier.
Thanks.
Good. Perfect.
Tucker, this goes back to when you were on the council.
Oh yeah, I remember.
The timing was always bad.
Well, we're pretty close to done. I know Rich keeps saying that we're going to do this on Tuesday, but I think we're going to be here on Wednesday.
Is it Wednesday? Okay, I'm
Wednesday.
sorry.
You can zoom in anyway.
And if for anybody's listening, that's just, we're not meeting Tuesday. That was just, yeah.
Just a mistake on my part. Sven, can I just ask one question here?
Of course.
I sent a chart out that Linda had sent me earlier today that laid out what we were actually voting on next Wednesday. And if anybody, we haven't had any debate over individual numbers that might be changed on that. If anybody wants to debate individual numbers, we need to get on it. Otherwise, those are the numbers that you will see on Wednesday with this salary change in it for $5,000. Linda, am I right on that?
Yes, and as a practical matter, the salary changes that we've discussed, like I said, the first selectman is included, the COLA is included, and the treasurer's adjustments, that I would probably recommend that we fund that from contingency,
So
which
we
is
don't put,
there,
okay.
and therefore the total bottom line number that will not change. So there won't be any changes to the numbers.
But
Okay.
Linda, just to be clear, these salaries are set as of after the election. When they start, they're
Yeah.
not to be in place now.
Correct.
December
They're
1st.
prorated, and that's why I said because of the nominal amount, it can be funded from contingency. So, for
Okay.
example, the treasurer's salary increase is what, 4,800 or so, prorated from November. So you're talking about a $2,000 or so budget impact that we can fund through contingency as opposed to increase the budget by $2,000.
And the town clerks, I don't believe starts till January 1.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of those are also in the salary contingencies for the COLAs.
Okay, so those are so that says the chart that you got this afternoon is what we would be voting on next Wednesday. Okay,
John, you want to take us out?
Hey, just a quick,
Allowed
just a
out.
quick reminder, guys, Tuesday night is P and Z. They're gonna take up the library, so that's Tuesday night. You want to tune in.
And I'd like to just do a very quick thank you to Cheryl Jones for preparing the PowerPoint with all of the salary information.
Thank you.
She didn't really have time to do it because she was part of the vaccination process, but she put her fingers to the computer and there it is. Not my skill set.
So who's making a motion here?
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Looks like
Steve.
Steve, second.
Maria,
Maria. All in favor? Raise your hand. How many do we have, Christina?
12.
All right. We are adjourned.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Good night.
everybody.
Thank you.